And good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of GCR. That would make me Glenn Clark. Griffin's here, as is Charles. Good to have you with us. Today's show brought to you by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com to find the best deals on a Toyota Tacoma from your local Toyota dealer today. Lots to do on a Tuesday edition of the program. I am still not used to looking that way at the camera instead of I'll get there eventually. In a couple of minutes, Joel Corry, former NFL agent, now with CBSSports.com. He wrote in detail about the Ravens situation with Lamar Jackson last week. We'll talk to him about that. It is a Tuesday, so we'll catch up with our buddy Patrick Stevens from the Washington Post, talk about the Terps, talk about everything that's been going on in college basketball for the last 2 weeks since I was not here last week. Speaking of college hoops, Cam Spencer, former Loyola star, of course, boys Latin alum. Probably remember his brother, Pat, pretty good at both basketball and lacrosse. One of the greatest lacrosse players of all time. Also now maybe a step away from joining the Golden State Warriors. Cam Spencer will join us. He's having a great season after he transferred to Rutgers. Helped beat Maryland a couple weeks back. Hit a game-winning three to hand Purdue their first loss of the season on the road. We'll talk to Cam Spencer, get caught up with him, and also before the show is over today, we're going to do a little Courts of Thunder action. Our buddy Gregg Rosenthal from NFL Network, NFL.com, but much more importantly from the ever-popular but currently dormant Courts of Thunder podcast. Because if you're going to do a podcast about Grand Slam tennis, a great time to not do it is during a Grand Slam tennis tournament. It's just the nature of it being football season, and Greg's got work to do, and I went to Disney. It's just not practical, but we will talk Australian Open. Bummer of a night for American tennis fans, just because Jessie Pegula looked like she was informed to have a legitimate chance to win her first Grand Slam. Unfortunately, she goes out in straight sets to Vika Azarenka. And before that, Seb Korda, just when I was ready to get back on board, just when I was ready, kind of got smoked by Karen Hatchinoff. Really a bummer of a night. Still 2 American men left. They'll play tonight, Ben Shelton and Tommy Paul. One of them will be in the semifinals, where they will earn the right to get their ass handed to them by Novak Djokovic, almost certainly.
You don't know that.
I don't know that. In fact, I think that Andrei Rublev has an opportunity, has a chance against Novak Djokovic tonight. I would never bet it, not with my life on the line, but I think he has a chance tonight to do that. I don't think it much matters. I think either one of them will smoke whoever wins the Tommy Paul, Ben Shelton matchup this evening. We'll talk about that. We'll also obviously talk about Lamar, the Ravens, the playoffs, all those things with Gregg Rosenthal later on. Today, of course, is Baseball Hall of Fame ballot announcement day. MLB Network will unveil the ballots in what I believe is a 4-hour broadcast special because, it definitely takes 4 hours to potentially announce no names. It's a very real scenario that could play out tonight, by the way. There is a 100% chance. 100% chance makes it that it would definitely happen.
Yeah.
So how would I say this? There's a 50-50, definitely a non-zero chance. And I would say it's almost as good as 50-50 that there will be no names announced tonight to join Fred McGriff in this year's class of the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Because the public votes are always overshoot, right?
I think there was only one time in history.
Wow.
Where
there was more anonymous ballots.
Right.
Okay.
I think, and you can double check my math on that one. I believe there was one time ever since Ryan Thibodeau and his team started this Baseball Hall of Fame tracker. I don't know. It's been around as long as we've been doing the unveiling with Dave Ginsburg, which has been at least 7 years. So I want to say they started this thing 10 or so years ago, maybe 15 years ago. So as long as they've been doing the Baseball Hall of Fame tracker, I believe there was one player ever whose number grew the day of the announcement, and everybody else's went down because typically the voters that don't want their ballots out there tend to be a bit more conservative, tend to be guys that are a bit stingier when it comes to Hall of Fame voting. They tend to be the Carson Wares of the world, Carson Tri-Weekly, who was very, very stingy on who was allowed to be in his Baseball Hall of Fame. At the moment, the best chances for getting into the Hall of Fame belong to Scott Rowland, who sits at 79.6% of ballots, and Todd Helton, who sits just one vote behind at 79.1% of ballots. That being said, less than half of the ballots are currently known. So there's a lot of unknown out there. There's far more unknown than there is known. It's good polling. It's representative, but typically these numbers tend to come down by about 5%. And if they come down 5%, neither one of Scott Rowland or Todd Helton will get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. It feels like among the voters, there's a thought that Rowland has a chance, that he could hold steady at about 70-ish% of votes the rest of the way, and he's got a chance of getting in. It tends to be more popularly believed that Todd Helton, despite sitting at 79.1% right now, won't get in, because now you get into the voters that are a little bit more strict, and those are the voters that are more likely to still hold up Todd Helton because of the Colorado thing. So we'll see. We'll find out. The broadcast starts at 4 o'clock. I am to understand the unveiling or the announcement will happen in the range of 6 o'clock. Okay. And we'll get an answer on the Hall of Fame. There is a possibility that no one will get in. These are the only two guys that have a chance of this group based on the way that voting is set up. I mean, somebody would point out that Billy Wagner currently sits 72.3%, but again, unless Griffin is going to pull up a different stat for me, like one player ever, I believe, has had that number grow in anonymous ballots versus public ballots. So the expectation is that won't happen, and those are the only two guys that legitimately have a chance. But we'll get those answers tonight when the Baseball Hall of Fame class is announced. And again, they will join Fred McGriff, who we already know will be in the Hall of Fame. Nothing else particularly newsworthy. I know a lot of people were kind of reacting to the news that Trayvon Mullen was claimed on waivers by the Baltimore Ravens. I have no idea. Like, to think that you're just kissing Lamar Jackson's ass by claiming his cousin on waivers, like, maybe. I can't tell you with certainty that it isn't that way. Like, if Lamar Jackson said,
"Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Trey's here?"
I mean, I don't know. Or like he said, "Look, I'll come talk to you guys, but I need you to do me a favor." And they were like, "Well, hell." Like, it's even weird that they put him on waivers because he's a free agent anyway. Like, he's not even – I don't even know what this means, claiming Trayvon Mullen off of waivers. It's so bizarre. He still becomes a free agent. All this does is give them the right to negotiate with him before he becomes a free agent. Like, this doesn't do anything. It's so utterly weird. Now, Trayvon Mullen, once upon a time, obviously, was a very thought-of prospect. I mean, he was very highly regarded. He was a second-round pick. He was a top 40 pick in the NFL draft. There was a time where he was really well thought of, but he has bounced around. It did not work out with the Raiders. He spent this season between Arizona and Dallas. In a world where the Ravens can use as many cornerbacks as possible, and this is something we need to start doing. Are we going to do an NFL draft segment this week? Where are we with that?
I'm working on it, yeah.
All right, we need to start our weekly NFL draft segments this week because we will do lots of NFL draft coverage, obviously, between now and April. I've already seen a couple, I believe. In fact, our buddy Chris Trapasso had them taking a cornerback. I think he had them taking Joey Porter, which was part of the reason why I wanted him to be first up because, God, wouldn't that just be delicious? Oh, my God. Could you imagine if it was Joey Porter, who, of course, everybody remembers famously cheap-shotted Todd Heap. Not Joey Porter Jr., of course. He did not do that. I believe he would have been like 1 year old at this point. But famously, Joey Porter Sr., of course, took that legendary cheap shot on Todd Heap. And Todd Heap admitted to me a couple years ago that, like, he truly hated Joey Porter for a little while. Like, they were at a golf tournament at one point and refused to even say hello to him because he was so pissed off about what a cheap shot it was. So it would be, I mean, like when I saw that, I thought about all the scenarios because I've seen like the PFF mock draft or whoever it was where they had him taking Anthony Richardson, and I was like, all right, wait, I'm not going there. I'm not even indulging until we get to the point where we have to. I'm not indulging. I won't go there yet. It's so absurd to me that we're presenting scenarios. I'll get back to that. Remind me to get back to that.
The Anthony Richardson?
Just the quarterback topic in a second. I'm not even going there yet in our coverage of the draft. So of the practical scenarios, the Joey Porter thing is delicious. Like, it is everything you could ask for as someone who covers local sports. My God, the reaction to that. Now, people that are Griffin's and Charles's age, I don't even know if they remember just how vitriolic things were towards Joey Porter in Baltimore. They couldn't. Griffin was 2.
I can't say I do.
Charles isn't even from here. Like there's no way that they could have any knowledge. But as hated Steelers go, I don't know that there was one more that was significantly hated than Joey Porter was, because
not James Harrison.
No, James Harrison was. Nobody liked James Harrison, but he was a tough, hard-nosed football player. There was more bitterness that the Ravens had James Harrison and let him go. It was more a bitterness that, dude, you had this guy and just let him walk, and he turned out to be James Harrison? What the hell, man? That was really stupid. Joey Porter was despised because it was as blatant a cheap shot as there's ever been in the history of football. Todd Heap could barely walk, and they knew they were just getting up to clock the ball, and he still took a shot at him just because that was the nature of the Ravens-Steelers rivalry. That's what happened when Ravens-Steelers was Ravens-Steelers. If Joey Porter's son were to become a Baltimore Raven, holy effing F. I might go streaking. It would be so amazing. It would just be so delicious. But the point of this being that they have him drafting a cornerback because you can just never have too many cornerbacks. And you look around and say, even if the Ravens were to bring back Marcus Peters, how many of us were very comfortable with what we saw from Marcus Peters this season? Exactly. Exactly. Better than the other options, probably, but he was very clearly on the downside of his career. So I do think cornerback is in play. So in a world where, and I used to say this about wide receiver. Remember, Kyle and I used to have these conversations all the time about wide receiver. Look anywhere. Look in the CFL. Look in the Arena League. Look anywhere. Nothing you're doing at the position is working. Try anything to find some more wide receivers. I remember people were making fun of them bringing in DeVere Posey one year, and I was like, why are you making fun of it? They don't have anybody. Bring in all of them. Bring in every receiver you can possibly bring in and pray that one of them works out. And there's something to be said about that with cornerback. You can never have too many. So it might literally have nothing to do with Lamar Jackson and just be the Ravens looking and saying, dude, we thought we brought in a ton of cornerbacks last year. We drafted a couple. We signed Kendall Fuller. We thought we did a lot of work at cornerback last year.
Kyle Fuller.
It was Kyle Fuller, right? Kendall Fuller's in Washington. Sorry. I'll forever do that, by the way. There's 2 others. There's so many Fullers. God, there's so many Fullers.
Should have brought in Will Fuller.
I don't know about that. And he's not one of the Fuller brothers. Everybody else gets that wrong. He is not. There are 4 Fuller brothers, and there's Will Fuller, who's a completely different thing. And isn't there Jordan Fuller? Aren't there it's nothing but Fullers?
Will Fuller is a receiver.
He is a receiver. By the way, I get it. It couldn't have been worse. You're right. It couldn't have been worse. There's no question about that. There is no doubt whatsoever. The point being, I think the cornerback position you can treat in a similar way, which is bring in a ton. Bring in everybody you can bring in. Just keep bringing in cornerbacks because you just never know. I mean, they had Darryl Worley and Kevon Seymour playing significant roles with his football team down the stretch. Bring in as many guys as you can bring in. That's the only reaction I have to Trayvon Mullen whatsoever. It is kind of silly, the thought that this is Lamar Jackson's cousin and maybe they're just trying to kiss Lamar Jackson's ass, but I don't even know if that's the case. I saw a couple people. I saw my friends over at 105.7 The Fan doing this yesterday. I cannot believe that anyone is entertaining. And I'm not – I'm trying to remember what it was. I saw our friends at 105.7 did a poll about who you would want as a Ravens bridge quarterback if they moved on from Lamar Jackson. And I just can't believe we're doing this with straight faces. I can't believe that we're having these conversations. I can't believe anyone is talking about a scenario where they wouldn't have pitchforks out that involved Geno Smith being the Baltimore Ravens quarterback next season. I can't believe we're doing this and taking it seriously, which isn't to say it's impossible that it could end up playing out. I don't know. But to have the conversations practically as if it's an acceptable thing for a franchise to do to just not have a quarterback, this is it comes off very disrespectful to Geno Smith, who I know had a very surprising and solid season. But let's not pretend like anything about what Geno Smith did. And I remember Drew bringing this up when he was like, well, dude, this happens sometimes. The Seahawks moved on from Russell Wilson. They were just fine. No, they weren't. They were not. They were better than we thought they were going to be. Geno Smith was far more credible than any of us believed he was going to be as a quarterback this season. But at no point, at any point this season, did any one of us think Geno Smith could win you a Super Bowl. Not one person, save for, the most ardent of Seahawks fans that just want to believe anything for the sake of believing anything. No reasonable observer watched that and said, that guy could win a Super Bowl. Great story. Awesome story. You're happy for Geno Smith, man. What a cool story to be written off and to resurrect your football career. I talk about how much I like Tyrod Taylor. I love Tyrod Taylor. Incredible dude. Awesome that a guy that no one believed was a starting caliber quarterback in the league proved to be a guy that could last for as long as he has. It's amazing. But no one ever watched Tyrod Taylor play and said, you can win a Super Bowl with that guy. Now, I get it. We're all kind of adjusting to what's going on in San Francisco and trying to figure out how that impacts what other teams might do. And I don't have the answer yet. I still don't think the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl, particularly after I saw how mid Brock Purdy played on Sunday, but I can't say it's impossible. And they have a loaded, insanely good roster, and they only need to win 2 more games in order to do it. So it's totally possible that they'll be able to pull it off. But does that set a new standard? Does that say declaratively that you can just have mid-level quarterback play and win a Super Bowl? Or is it the outlier? Or is it the thing where you say, yeah, this almost certainly isn't going to happen? The idea of signing up, why go all in on Roquan Smith to turn around and have a bridge quarterback? Why load up the way that you have as a franchise on defense to turn around and let Derek Carr be your quarterback? It's a real burn it down type of thought process. If Lamar Jackson's not your guy, if you're not going to have a quarterback, rebuild. Rebuild. Go start all over again. If you don't think it's worth it to pay market value for a quarterback, and you can be bothered by what market value has become, you can be angry about that and pissed off about the Cleveland Browns and the whole thing, but you're whining to nobody. If you're mad about that and you don't want to have a quarterback, rebuild. Because you're not winning a damn thing with a good defense and Derek Carr. It ain't happening. I mean, you could win 9 games. You could be competitive. The Seahawks were competitive this year, right? Like the Seahawks figured out a way to be just good enough to not be able to draft their quarterback next year. Where they kind of either have to commit to Geno Smith at a far bigger price, knowing he's still probably not good enough for you to win a Super Bowl, or you have to take whatever's left of the quarterback market by the time you get there. I can't believe we're talking about bridge quarterbacks. I can't believe that's a conversation that we would have with a straight face and not immediately say, this is insane. It's bonkers that a franchise would consider going that route. Today's show also brought to you by, just a reminder, the gambling can be fun, but you should set a limit and stay within it. And remember that if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. We will get back into a lot of conversation throughout the course of this show, but we're going to stick with some Ravens right now. Always appreciate our conversations with our next guest. He wrote at length last week while I was gone about the Lamar Jackson situation with the Baltimore Ravens. He is a former NFL agent. He now handles these contract conversations for CBSSports.com. He's our friend Joel Corry, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Joel, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always great to catch up. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Sure, thanks for having me.
You know, we're in such a weird place, Joel, like with all of this, because it's so difficult to figure out exactly what's going on. Let me start with this question. If the reports are true that we have seen about what the Ravens offered to Lamar Jackson last summer, do you feel like they were negotiating with Lamar Jackson in good faith, given what those numbers were?
Yeah, that's a reasonable offer, and it's fair to say that's good faith. One thing which wasn't reported, in addition to the $133 million fully guaranteed at signing, which would have been the second most NFL contract, is what the total guarantee was. I saw a report from someone in NFL media that it was roughly in the same neighborhood of 67% of the total new money being guaranteed. So that would put the overall guarantee at least at 170. Contract was a year too long for my liking. I would have wanted a 4-year extension if I'm Lamar, if I'm not going fully guaranteed contract. And then there was something else I'd read. There was definitely a non-starter. $2 million salary de-escalator for not participating in some unspecified percent of the offseason workout program. The Ravens do not have any type of clause like that in anybody else's contract. And I know that was definitely in response to what the Cardinals did with Kyler Murray.
Interesting. And you think that quarterback, like players will not go for that in the contract moving forward?
I don't know why Kyler Murray did. Well, a lot of things I don't know why Kyler Murray did, like that clause they got taken out, the homework clause.
Yeah, right. The no playing video games clause, something like that.
Yeah, that's for a different day. But I'm not setting a precedent contractually with the Ravens, because what's going to happen from Lamar Jackson, they're going to use that against every other player in the future, and every other player is going to get stuck with that.
So you're saying that there's just no way. We don't even go that route. We don't even consider it. No how, no sir.
Yeah, that workout participation salary escalator, that would be a non-starter for me.
So I guess the question becomes, I have been told it's not, again, I've been told by sources that I believe, that I would know, that it's not as simple as it's fully guaranteed or nothing, that there could be room in there. Do you still feel, I remember we talked, the beginning of this season, and you felt like there would still be room between what the Ravens have offered and fully guaranteed to do something that would work for both sides. Do you still believe that could be the case?
Yeah, I think that's where Lamar could benefit from an agent, because the agent's job is, one, to tell a player what he needs to hear as opposed to what he wants to hear, but you also are executing the client's his wishes, because you work for the client does not work for you. Also, at the same time, if Lamar had an agent, he probably gets done at the Josh Allen $43 million per year range on maybe a 6-year extension before the 2021 season starts. So it's kind of worked out not having an agent. But, yeah, I still think there is a way to get a deal done which is not fully guaranteed. I don't know if the Ravens would go for what I would have in mind, but it's still going to be 4 years. You're going to front load the crap out of that thing, kind of like the Mark Andrews structure in terms of how the cash flow percentages work. And I'm going to borrow something from Dak Prescott's contract, where I got a no-trade clause. You can't franchise me after the 4th year.
So, okay, let's take a step back then. If if for whatever reason it is really a black and white scenario where his camp is saying fully guaranteed or we're doing nothing, I've always been confused as to why teams balk at the idea of the quarterback getting fully guaranteed. I talked about this with Dominic Foxworth a little while back, where I said, I get that in their minds it's a slippery slope, right? If the quarterbacks start getting fully guaranteed, then the next guy is going to ask for fully guaranteed. And Dom kind of laughed at me and said, yeah, but the next guys aren't quarterbacks. Like, the next guys, the teams are moving on from their – Devontae Adams was moved. Like, Tyreek Hill was moved. The teams are moving on from players at every other position. They don't have the leverage, plain and simple. Why wouldn't, knowing damn well that every quarterback gets their money, like it seems like such a wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing to me that we're fighting about the idea of fully guaranteed. Whatever deal Lamar Jackson signs, barring something absurd, he's going to get all of the money anyway, right?
Yeah, quarterbacks usually play out the bulk of the deal. The problem has been quarterbacks outside of Kirk Cousins have not exercised the leverage to get fully guaranteed contracts. Most of these guys do an extension 1 or 2 years before their contracts are due. And Lamar's big problem isn't, well, one, it's the fact that Deshaun Watson got a fully guaranteed contract when he had a bunch of off-the-field issues. It's that nobody else followed it up. Kyler Murray was never getting a fully guaranteed contract, and they're sticking a homework clause in his contract, not fully guaranteeing it. I blame Russell Wilson. This was set up for Russell Wilson to get a fully guaranteed contract. They gave up the sun, the moon, and the stars to get him. And the new ownership group has more money than practically anybody on the planet. It's from the Walmart family. That particular guy is like the 20th richest guy on the planet. So to me, the conditions were ripe for Russell Wilson to insist on a fully guaranteed contract. He didn't. And right now it's an outlier. So no NFL team is going to follow this Deshaun Watson thing that's an outlier because teams don't like establishing new precedents to begin with.
Joe Corry is with us, former NFL agent, now with CBS Sports. Joe, let me lay out the if it doesn't happen, because I know you wrote about the tag scenario. I come back to, and I loathe saying these words because I loathe the idea of moving on from a franchise quarterback. We've just literally never seen this in like the history of football. But isn't there a point at which you've got to figure out what the direction of your franchise is? And I feel like the NFL draft sets up kind of a deadline for this. Like, if you're going to end up considering trading Lamar Jackson, then don't you need to do it before the draft because you don't want every other team filling their quarterback need during the draft and then having fewer teams involved in the process? And don't you have to use the draft in order to find your next quarterback? Like, if there is a scenario at which the Ravens are going to consider trading Lamar Jackson, don't they need to do it before the NFL draft?
Yeah, those are very good points. Now the thing is that they said all the right things after they were eliminated from the playoffs, which John Harbaugh had a totally different tone than when he seemed perturbed that Lamar wasn't playing, about how he's going to have input in the offensive coordinator.
Right.
He's going to be here 200%. If they still have a stalemate on its fully guaranteed contract, Steve Bisciotti doesn't want to give one, then they got to make a decision on which franchise tag, non-exclusive or exclusive. I would not stick the non-exclusive on him because you're capped at 2 first-round picks as your compensation, because that's an offer sheet, and he can end up in the AFC and you got to face him.
Yep.
I go non-exclusive, which will be like $45 million. And then you can try to get a Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson haul while working jointly with him, and you would try to trade him before the draft. I still think 2024 is when the rubber meets the road and Lamar plays on a franchise tag in 2023 if push comes to shove.
So you think that there's the option for them to go one more year with this, and then after next season, that's when they have to figure out exactly what they're going to do?
Yeah, because then you don't have a choice. You either give him what he wants,
right,
or you have to trade him because you're not going to stick a third franchise tag on him for practically $78 million. So 2024 is the point where you have to absolutely make a decision one way or another. I think you have a ready-made championship defense. You take a step back if it's a draft pick and Anthony Richardson or whomever, if you trade enough picks and you're trying to get someone in the 2023 draft, you get enough picks in return for Lamar. So I really think it gets punted for a year, and it's 2024 is the year of reckoning.
It just feels like everything should be on the table at this point. And you should feel like what you know what you're doing. I get your point. I guess the question that a Ravens fan would probably have, and this goes back to the unknown of what happened at the end of the season, which is, don't you set yourself up for, if you put a tag on Lamar, a potential another scenario playing out where, if he ends up dealing with something injury related, he says to himself, I'm not going to rush back. I'm not going to, don't you set yourself up for the awkwardness to potentially continue for another year if you do this on the tag?
Yeah, there's a real possibility he's not going to show up until he feels like it right before training camp, because unsigned players of unsigned tenders can't be fined, so they don't have to show up to minicamp.
Yep.
And he would sign it on his own time. I don't see Lamar Jackson foregoing what would be $45 million and not playing, because that's about 40% more than his career earnings today. So
I hear you. Right.
He's gonna play on a franchise tag if you give it to him. Then it will become 2024, but it's not conducive to a great offseason.
Man, it just seems awkward, right? And I get it, this is Lamar Jackson that we're talking about. If he shows up the week before the season begins, he's going to play. You're not going to say, hey, dude, we'd rather have Tyler Huntley line up in week 1. He's going to play if that's the case. It just seems like you're setting yourself up for things to be entirely uncomfortable. Joel, I know the answer to this, but I want you to explain it to people that don't. There is this notion from some that because the Ravens did a $20 million per year deal with Roquan Smith, that if they were to give Lamar Jackson a big-time contract, that means they would no longer have any money to spend. I've seen the numbers. I know that's not true, but can you explain to people why it's not that simple? Like when they just want to say, well, you can't give a quarterback that much money or you're not going to be able to sign another player. It might not be that simple.
Well, there's a cash budget and a salary cap, and each team sets a cash budget and goes accordingly. And from a salary cap perspective, it's better to get Lamar on a long-term deal because you're not dealing with ultimately what would be a $45 million cap hit for 2023. The way the Ravens do long-term deals, and let's say he agreed to a 5-year deal, then they're going to go signing bonus and have a low first-year cap hit. I think Roquan's first-year cap hit next year for 2023 is $9 million. Don't quote me on that. I'm just going off the top of my head from what I remember. So you'd have a signing bonus, and you'd have an option bonus. So an option bonus is prorated on the cap, just like the signing bonus. So then that would be prorated as well. So you'd have low cap numbers the first 2 years, and then the cap number would start really spiking in 2025. And by then the cap will start jumping dramatically because the new TV money would fully have kicked in and all the money would need to be paid back from the COVID year when the money was borrowed, so the bottom would have fallen out of the cap. Well, that'll be over as well. So it's better for you from a cap standpoint, one, to have cost certainty and have your quarterback for the future. But from a cap standpoint, it's better for Lamar to be on a long-term deal than going as a year-to-year proposition.
No question. Obviously, the franchise tag would be far more costly, a 1 year all at once. Nothing you can do about it type of number. Roquan, it looks like a $9 million number for next season, by the way, in 2023 is what I'm coming up with. Joel, do you have a gut any longer? Like, is your gut the thing that you said that it's 1 more year and then that's when the rubber meets the road? But do you still have a gut about what that means when the rubber meets the road?
Well, you're definitely not going to fully guarantee a contract to Lamar this year because this is the second straight December he barely played football or didn't play football. So why are you going to fully guarantee a contract to a guy who now has more durability concerns than he did when we were negotiating last time? So I still think 2024 is when the decision's made. If he gets through 2024 totally healthy, plays all 17 games, that erases some of the durability concerns. If he wins the Super Bowl, let's say he's back in 2023, you win a Super Bowl, then you have to do whatever he wants, just like he reluctantly did for Joe Flacco. I'm not comparing them as a player. I'm just comparing the situation. in terms of you made Flacco the highest paid player when you didn't want to from winning a Super Bowl. If Lamar Jackson wins a Super Bowl, you're going to give him a fully guaranteed contract whether you want to or not.
What can we plug for you, my friend? Podcast, the whole deal. What can we get a plug in for?
Working on a podcast, which will come out either today or tomorrow, on Tom Brady's decision to keep playing and what it would mean cap-wise for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whether he's there, retires, or someplace else. And also, tomorrow's CBS article will be on Saquon Barkley and what would be a fair contract for him.
Obviously, someone who is going to be in high demand despite the position not being valued the way that it was once before. He's still Saquon Barkley, as he proved this season. At Corry Joel on Twitter, Corry Joel on Twitter is how you follow him. Joel Corry, always appreciate you, my friend. I know we've had about 1 million of these exact conversations, and I'm sure this won't be the last one, but I always thank you for the insight that you give us about it, all right?
Oh, anytime.
It's Joel Corry from CBSSports.com, former NFL agent with us here on GCR. I understand his thought process on you sort of ride it out for one more year, right? Like, I understand that thought process, but you are setting yourself up for, like, legitimate awkwardness in the process. I don't understand what if it's one more year because you just want to see if he plays 17 games. So what's the penalty if he misses one? Like, that's it? Was it worth that trade-off for Lamar to say, I'm not going to show up for anything in the offseason? Like, anything at all? I'm not showing up for training camp. I'm not showing up for – is that worth it? Like, it just feels like you're dragging your feet when you know what the answer is. And it's been presented to me by a couple of people. What if it really is that Lamar just doesn't want to sign? Okay, well, that's a horse of a different color. We have not at any step been presented a scenario where he just refuses to sign with the Baltimore Ravens. So I don't operate in absurd hypotheticals. But if for whatever reason that actually is the case, he's so bothered by something that exists, his relationship with someone, despite Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh going on about their relationships with Lamar Jackson. But the truth is, he just personally does not like somebody here and does not want to be here. That's a different conversation that I can't speak to. And by the way, if for some reason that was true, I would probably encourage you to go ahead and get this done now. I don't know why you'd be waiting another year. You know how I feel. I'm not going to waver on it. There's no reason. You can't try to bamboozle me into thinking that fully guaranteeing a contract for a quarterback is some big deal. It's not. They get their money. Always. Now, I get it. I do think the real fight is about the slope that owners believe that will take us down and that other players at other positions will start asking for fully guaranteed contracts as well. I believe that's the holdup. Dom, who, of course, somebody I trust, former NFLPA president, one of the smartest humans that I've ever known, Dominique Foxworth, tells me, dude, it's not that simple. Like, you don't just get to say, well, you gave the quarterback a fully guaranteed contract, so now you give me a fully guaranteed contract. Teams have proven they are willing to move on from anyone else. How'd it look for the Packers without Devontae Adams? But they're willing. No team has ever been willing to move on from this level of quarterback. But they have proven over and over again they'll move on from any other player at any other position. They don't have that leverage. Teams will move on. The Chiefs are kind of proving that you can move on from a great player and still be all right. Not from a quarterback, but from any other player. So Dom's point is well taken. Like, the fear of a slippery slope doesn't stand up. It's as slippery a slope until a team proves willing to do it. If some team proves willing to give a player a fully guaranteed contract in another position, well, then that changes. But right now, the evidence that we have is that teams will simply move on from players at other positions. I do get the complication. I'm not trying to pretend like it doesn't exist. Championship weekend in the NFL. 2 big games coming up on Sunday and an opportunity for you to win money betting on those 2 games. Of course, the AFC and NFC title games are this Sunday. And right now, you should wander over to PressBoxOnline.com/offers and sign up with BetMGM, bet $10, and automatically get $200 in additional free bets. Get this promo and more by going to PressBoxOnline.com/offers right now. You can get over $2,000 in promo offers from all of Maryland's mobile sports books. From Andrew Stecca, very, very fair point. Very fair point. The only person that's comparable to Joey Porter in terms of hatred would be Hines Ward. That's the only one. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, I guess, but it's a different sort of thing. But Hines Ward, because he would smile as he would take a shot over the middle of the field, he would give somebody an elbow, and then he'd smile over him. That definitely was that level. But Joey Porter is, I'm telling you, it would be delicious. It would just be delicious. Like, to the point where I'm rooting for it. Like, I'm genuinely rooting for it to play out that way. That's not true. I still think they should take a wide receiver. I'll take that back immediately. If they're not going to take a wide receiver, that would be a great way for it to go. It's time for us to talk some college hoops. We do this every Tuesday here on GCR. We catch up with our friend from the Washington Post, and you follow him on Twitter at Discourse, D1S Course. He's our buddy, Mr. Patrick Stevens, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Patrick, good morning, my friend. Great to chat with you as always. Thank you for taking the time.
And thank you so much for having me, as always, Glenn.
I think a couple weeks ago when you and I talked, I probably said something like, I'm not sure that Maryland's going to do anything against a team that has a legitimate post presence this season. And in the last two games, they won a game against a team with a legitimate post presence, and they damn near beat a team on the road that has the best post presence in all of college basketball. What have they done to make themselves less susceptible against teams that have legitimate interior players?
Well, for starters, Julian Reese is playing a lot better at the offense.
No doubt.
Right? Like, I mean, you look at what he did the other day. I mean, if you're Maryland, okay, Zach Edey goes and gets his 24 and 16 on 10 of 17 shooting. But Julian Reese having 19 points on 8 of 11, and yeah, there were only 3 rebounds in there, but I think you take that. I think you take that every single time and go, okay, let's go try to figure everything else out. And frankly, the Maryland strategy of, all right, he's going to get his no matter what we do. Let's keep everybody else in check. And when you look at it, the rest of Purdue shot 10 of 35, including 2 of 13 from 3. And so if you're Maryland, that's not a terrible play. And it obviously, Purdue did get off to a great start. They were up by 16 there in the middle of the first half. But Maryland made a game of it. And you throw in the fact that they were able to deal with Hunter Dickinson from Michigan as well as they did. I thought Kevin Willard had an interesting way of looking at it. I think Dickinson finished with, 19 and 10, was it, or 19 and 9? But he hit 3 threes. And so if you're Maryland and you go, well, if his interior damage is 10 points and 9 rebounds,
that's fair.
And you take that, right? Like, you just simply take that. So I think one thing that definitely helped the other day is, they had some foul trouble. Obviously, early, Reese had 2 fouls, and Caleb Swanton-Roger had 2 fouls. But overall, they didn't have brutal foul trouble. You look up at the end of the game, and Reese has played 34 minutes, and Hakeem Hart finished with 4 fouls, and he played 38 minutes, and nobody else had more than 2. Like, that's part of the formula as well, is keeping those guys on the floor. And some of that, too, comes down to the fact that, Willard is not going to foul out his own guys just because they get 2 fouls. So he might, but he's probably not going to just shelve somebody for a half. And he simply can't afford to do it with a guy like Reese this season. So I kind of walk away from those 2 games, and I feel like the way that they've played, the Michigan game was a 58-59 possession game played in the high 50s to low 60s. The game on Sunday at Purdue was a 58-59 possession game played in the high 50s. That's their formula for winning, just like it was 2 years ago when they had an underside.
Yep.
And if they can do that, they're going to find themselves in a number of games, just rock fights. And that's okay, because the truth of the matter is that both Purdue and Michigan are overall more talented than them. They certainly have a bigger presence inside than Maryland does. But if you're sitting here looking at the 3 games that they played, the first one against Michigan didn't go so well, but they got a split, which was more than it looked like they were going to get at this time last week. And now you think about, well, they gave Purdue a really good run in West Lafayette, and you get them at home, and we've already seen what Willard has been able to do, improving a team from game 1 to game 2 against somebody.
Sure.
There's no reason to think that won't continue either.
These are fair points. And again, I think we've talked a lot about this team does also appears to be a team that, and I know I'm not saying anything that's crazy, they just seem to be a team that's better suited to play at home this season. Like they've other than the UCLA disaster that we talked about, like other than that, they have been really good at home this year. And I know that it's not rocket science. That's kind of part of college basketball, but it does seem to be particularly noticeable for this team.
They are certainly a home court hero at this point.
Yeah.
They do have the 2 neutral site victories over St. Louis and Miami, and they did win at Louisville, which is barely a team at this point.
Right.
But as long, the argument, and I have to admit, I'm impressed with how Willard has handled things throughout this season after a lot of those losses. Maybe not all of them, but basically going after Tennessee. Well, fought back in the second half. UCLA, this was a scheduled loss and it's on me. Thought that, I know he thought that the Rutgers game, getting Reese kind of back into the flow of things was a plus there. Felt like they had played reasonably well on offense against Iowa. Certainly have every reason to think good thoughts after that Purdue game. And he's kept talking about getting home games. So at this point, I would say that as long as they keep holding serve at home, that you're probably not going to complain too much about much of anything. Now, I do think when we size up the remaining schedule, like the back half of league play, the schedule turns in their favor. They still have 2 Minnesotas. They still have 2 Nebraskas. They have a Northwestern at home. They have a Penn State at home, even though Penn State's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They get Wisconsin in a really good spot all of a sudden because Wisconsin had to go to Northwestern and play yesterday. And now they got to turn around and play 48 hours later on the road. So there's a number of things that have worked out here for Maryland. And if they do keep winning home games, I'm not going to sit here and guarantee you right now that a Maryland team that gets in the barn at 10-10 in the Big Ten is an NCAA tournament team. But it's going to be in the conversation for sure.
By the way, that's where I wanted to go next. Patrick Stevens is with us here on GCR. I wanted to start talking about what, we are deep into January now. What is the picture? What is the totality of the picture for where Maryland is as far as the practicality of what they need to do in order to be in the tournament conversation?
Well, the best advice I can give them, first of all, is don't lose to Minnesota. Because that's basically like the one team that can really, really hurt you in any single game, just because they've been, their profile just overall isn't very good. But right now, they're a borderline tournament team. I mean, I think you could argue them in or out. I think their overall metrics suggest that they are right on the line. The lack of victories away from home is a bit of a concern. But there's nothing that you look at on their profile and go, gosh, this team doesn't belong in the tournament. I mean, what's the worst thing that they've done this year? Arguably the worst thing they've done is lose at Michigan. And besides that, I mean, that on paper, that's probably the worst thing that they've done this year.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you're not going to sit there and go, oh gosh, that's a dreadful loss.
No.
Obviously the way it unfolded was dreadful, but the actual result, whether you lose to Michigan by 5 or by 35, no one's really thinking twice about that. So if you're Maryland, the best thing you could do is avoid truly, truly silly losses. And there's only a couple of those they can really take. The Minnesota games, and I would argue Nebraska at home on Saturday is not a game you want to lose either. But if they could just keep notching decent victories, and the thing is that, you look at the Big Ten, and I think there's one really, really, really good team in the Big Ten in Purdue. And then everybody else, and I would elevate Rutgers above the rest of that tier because of how good they are defensively. But just about everybody else in that league besides Nebraska and Minnesota is an opportunity to get at least a somewhat useful victory. I don't know if any of those teams have the goods to make a run to the second weekend of the tournament, besides Purdue and maybe Rutgers with that defense. But there's a lot of good teams, not great teams, but just a plethora of good teams, which means just about every time out is an opportunity to help yourself in the eyes of the committee.
He is Patrick Stevens. He's with us here on GCR. Patrick, let's come back locally. And since the last time you and I talked, it's been mostly much of the same for like Towson and UMBC. They're not the best teams in their leagues, but they're winning games and putting themselves in position to have a chance.
Yeah, Towson, since we talked last week, went down and swept North Carolina A&T and Elon down in North Carolina. The Elon game, they were up 10 with, I think, about 7 or 8 to play, and then things got perilously close for them before they held on. You know, Cam Holden's back, obviously. He's been back for a few games. They've won 4 in a row and 6 out of 7 since the Charleston loss on New Year's Eve. If you're Towson, I think we talked about this before, like this weekend kind of showed that even if they're not at their best, they're still going to pile up a fair number of victories.
Right.
And right now, if that conference tournament started, they'd be the number 2 seed. They've beaten the other 2 teams that they're tied with, Hofstra and Drexel. They'd be the 2 seed behind Charleston. And at the end of the day, you know, for them, the 2 things that you would like if you're Towson is 1, to be a top 4 seed, so you only have to win 3 games rather than 4. And 2, to be on the other half of the bracket from Charleston and just hope that somebody else happens to knock them out along the way. I think
although
the other
we're
thing
pointing
you're
out,
as
you and I saw, they were very competitive with Charleston at home a few weeks ago.
They were,
right?
they were. But I'm just saying that's a good
sure,
team.
No
and
question.
If you can give somebody else the opportunity to deal with them, and you don't have to face them in the semis and have the emotional high of that, and have to reload the musket the next day, that's probably for the best.
Agreed.
But I'm not sitting here saying Towson can't beat Charleston. I just think that it is a more manageable path if you don't have to deal with them, if you can avoid it. So that's the deal with Towson. It's kind of the status quo. I mean, I hate to say it. I'm going to go see them on Thursday against Northeastern. But it feels like, as you just kind of look through the rest of the schedule up until that last weekend when they go to Charleston and UNC Wilmington, I mean, I see a lot of games that they should win. I think the trip to Hofstra will be much more of a challenge than the home game was. But I see a lot of victories on the horizon for Towson going into that final weekend. And so, maybe they get Jason Gibson back. I know from talking to Pat Scarry after the Hofstra game, he's not interested in making excuses. It's like, we got what we got. We got enough. And I think that ultimately, they do, so long as those top guys all play well. Whether it's a Nick Timberlake, who had a great week, Cam Holden, Charles Thompson, and they're obviously getting some good mileage out of Nigel Russell, and Siku Silla also has been playing a little bit more late. As for UMBC, split the week against UMass Lowell in New Hampshire, and right now that America East is kind of a mess. UMass Lowell's a half game up on Vermont, UMBC, and Binghamton, and so. Typically we've kind of thought of that league as, well, can you beat Vermont? And already a couple teams have beaten Vermont. So that league race is more interesting than it typically has been over the last 7 or 8 years or so. So, I certainly look forward to getting the chance to see UMBC when Lowell comes back to town next month. And right now they're 4-2 in the league, and they go to NJIT in Vermont, and that'll bring them to the midpoint of league play. At this point, if you're UMBC, you're in good shape to end up with a home game in the conference tournament. Since the loss to Vermont, they've scored at least 75 points in every game. I think we know the deal with UMBC at this point. The offense is really good. If they can get the defense to improve even a little bit, it's going to give them a fighting chance in that conference come March.
And then I don't know that you and I have ever talked about UMES basketball, if I'm being totally honest with you. But this coming Monday, UMES comes to Morgan State, and it feels like that's sort of shaping up to be significant in the MEAC.
If you do the tiebreakers right now, the number 1 seed in the MEAC tournament right now would be Maryland East Shore. They are tied for first in the conference with Howard and Morgan State. They beat Howard early in league play. They have yet to play Morgan State, but they have sat here. They've won 8 out of 9 games. Since they had a week where they went to Liberty, George Mason, and Duke, and lost 3 in a row in like a 9-day span or so. And since then, there's a couple non-D1s in there, and you can just go, okay, whatever. It's not a big deal to beat that team. But they've won at Temple. They just swept South Carolina State and NC Central. They won the kind of slugfest at NC Central that's really, really hard to come away with. They won a high-scoring game against Howard. Eastern Shore's defense is actually pretty good. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it would be elite in a high major conference or something like that. But they defend the heck out of you. They play so hard, and they've got a fair number of older guys on that team that have been there basically since Coach Jason Crafton got there. You've got Zion Stiles and Kevon Voiles and Nathaniel Pollard and Deshaun Phillip is really one of the big figures on that team. Offensively, they're not great, but they can overcome that. Sort of think of them as a little bit of kind of like a Rutgers in some way.
Okay.
A team that is going to win on defense, and they force a ton of turnovers in league play. And so they are a fun team to watch. At the very least, they're going to play really hard. And they get both Coppin and Morgan this week. Coppin down in Princess Anne on Saturday, and then Morgan comes up to Morgan Monday night in a game that could given those matchups, they both Morgan and Eastern Shore are playing teams that are 1-4 in the league. That could be first place at stake in the MEAC come next Monday night.
What a world! What a world we're living in. So, might be a good time for me to make my first MEAC Monday appearance of this season. Maybe I come join you over there. Is that in your plans for Monday nights?
I'm not sure yet. I haven't seen Coppin since before Christmas.
Okay, all right.
They're home that night too. But you kind of size that up and think that's a pretty good matchup right there. And I saw Morgan last night, and they played really, really well. Got some tough news. It looks like Malik Miller's out for the year with a knee injury. He was undergoing an MRI, but he had a knee injury on Saturday against Howard, and he is just an amazing rebounder and an excellent player. And their response to losing him and getting hammered by Howard was really impressive last night, scoring the first 14 points and never trailing against Norfolk State. Will Thomas with a career-high 27 points and a career-high 11 rebounds in that one, really kind of taking up the slack a bit for the loss of Malik Miller. And so Morgan State also playing really, really well at this point. And so some interesting MEAC Monday happenings in these parts this season.
Time for our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams that this particular player has played for? Patrick, I combed over the Hall of Fame ballot and found out there are only 3 names on the list that we've never had in our game. So I pulled all 3 of them for this week. I will acknowledge none of them have gotten even a single vote in Hall of Fame balloting. We are pulling from the bottom of the list. They're all tricky, but let's just knock them out. The first one is
let's do the theme day. Okay.
Correct. The first one is a reliever, 2-time All-Star, a Rookie of the Year, and twice finished in the top 25 of MVP balloting. It's Houston Street, 4 teams.
4 teams for Houston Street are Oakland.
Yes.
He was a Padre, I believe.
Most certainly was, yes.
He was an Angel, I believe.
At the end for 3 seasons, indeed. 4 seasons, in fact.
Am I remembering him as a Rocky?
I mean, if you went 4 for 4 on Houston Street, my God, that is a hell of a place to start. The next one is 4 teams as well. Only an All-Star once. Was a Gold Glove Award winner one time. 4 teams for Bronson Arroyo.
Bronson Arroyo was definitely a Red Sox.
Yep.
Was definitely a Red.
Those are the big ones, obviously.
I feel like he was a Pirate at the very beginning.
In fact, for 3 seasons, and I had forgotten about that entirely. And then he spent 1 year in 2014 somewhere.
I'm feeling like this is one of those NL West trips. So, am I thinking Colorado here as well?
Oh my God, so close. Was
it Arizona?
Arizona was the stop. And the last
In fairness to me, that was the other team that I had.
I have no doubt. It's 3.75 points for that one. And then the last one, also just an All-Star once, 4 teams for Mike Napoli.
Mike Napoli was definitely in Cleveland.
Yes, he was. That was the shortest tenure of his career.
Okay, he was definitely in Boston.
Most certainly for 3 years.
He was definitely in Texas.
For 4 years. And then the longest stop of his career, actually, at the beginning
Really?
Yes.
I am forgetting Mike Napoli's longest stop.
5 years at the beginning of his career, from 2006 to 2010.
It's funny. I don't think I know that one. let me sort of scan my brain here to think if I can come up with a site for Mike Napoli early in his career. Gosh.
I can't even give you anything here. I don't.
Yeah,
I
mean,
I gotta be honest. It's funny. I didn't remember it either. For what it's worth, I didn't remember it.
Yeah. Was he in Atlanta?
No, it was the Angels. Was Mike Napoli for 5 years at the beginning of his career, but pretty freaking good on those three. What else is on the docket for this week, my friends?
Well, going to catch Georgetown and DePaul tonight. It's almost now or never time for the Hoyas, as they've lost 29 consecutive Big East Conference games. Tomorrow, Maryland and Wisconsin, Towson and Northeastern on Thursday, and then Saturday. Haven't quite fine-tuned the schedule, but it's almost certainly going to include Maryland and Nebraska, and then Sunday, Mason and St. Joe's. So staying busy, and obviously a MEAC Monday game in Baltimore to close things out.
At Discourse on Twitter, D1S Course, and, of course, his stuff in the Washington Post, as always. And I believe next week he's actually going to be joining us here in studio, as I think we're going to be locking down our college lacrosse preview show for next week and having the area coaches join us. I think we're going to be doing that on Tuesday, in fact, is the plan.
Okay.
I'm working on finalizing that, but got in touch with some folks, and I think the Tuesday is going to work for us to pull that off. So we will look forward to that. Indeed, as believe it or not, we are on the. Is anybody playing this weekend, or is it all starting the following?
No,
week?
no.
Okay.
The first play date for anybody is the 4th of February.
Okay.
That's Saturday.
All right. My season, by the way.
I believe locally Hopkins plays that day on the 4th, and Maryland plays that day on the 4th, and Navy plays on the 4th. But I don't think we have anybody else in the area playing that weekend.
Okay.
I think Towson, UMBC, Loyola all open up a little bit later.
Yeah, Loyola with a nice easy one to start the season. My first game of the year is Loyola, Maryland. Not a bad way to start the season for me. That'll be it's quite the test for Loyola at this point. All right, at Discourse, as I said, Patrick Stevens, appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in here next week. Thank you, my friend.
Awesome, Glenn. Take care.
Patrick Stevens joining us as he does every Tuesday here on GCR. And speaking of UMBC basketball, as we mentioned, they're on the road for a couple games this week before the men get back home next week. You want to go ahead and get your tickets right now to spend game day at the Peak on February 1st against Binghamton. Go to umbcretrievers.com in order to get your tickets. And the UMBC women are home for a pair of games this week. On Wednesday night, they take on NJIT. On Saturday afternoon, they host Vermont. You can get those tickets as well. umbcretrievers.com. Speaking of college basketball, Cam Spencer is going to join us in a few minutes from Rutgers, of course, former Loyola Greyhound and former Boys Latin star. Also, going to get to some of your responses this morning to Joel Corry's conversation. A bunch of you guys have been chiming in on YouTube and Twitter. I'll get to some of those here in a minute. It is GCR.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our annual Best Of issue. On the cover, we recognize Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman as our 2022 Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, and he sits down with us to discuss how his arrival in Baltimore was simultaneous with the Birds' turnaround. Also inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of the year throughout the local sports scene. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip, that first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at over $60,000 and over $64,000 for lateral officers, with $10,000 signing bonuses available. Plus, cadets start at over $32,000. Great benefits are available, like medical, dental, and vision insurance, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days per calendar year with no limit, career advancement to more than 20 specialized units, and more, with further incentives for military service members and veterans. A passion for service, a career for life with the Baltimore County Police Department. Find out more at joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. Must be a United States citizen, have a valid driver's license, and a high school diploma or GED equivalent.
Check out Jeremy Kahn's daily picks at PressBoxOnline.com as he tries to find you daily winners. And speaking of winners, here's a man who once won a media curling contest, and I don't think anything else. He's Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR. If you missed it last night, Stan the Fan Charles and Ross Grimsley caught up with Matt Blood, of course, Orioles Director of Player Development. Really good conversation about their young players and the direction they're headed in. If you missed it, you can find it right now, facebook.com/PressBoxSports, PressBoxOnline.com/video, or YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline. From John Little Rock, in any world that Richardson is drafted by the Ravens or any team is laughable. Dude is horrendous. It's Anthony Richardson that we're talking. I'm just not even going there. Also says praying the Ravens stay away from hiring Kellen Moore as OC. He's terrible. And if it comes down to Lamar Jackson only signing for a fully guaranteed contract and the Ravens refusing, then I can see them trading him and starting over. That's definitely a possibility. I guess my point would be, as insane as I think that is, I would do that before I'd be talking about a bridge quarter. Like, I have to start with this. There's no scenario where I can justify saying we can't go fully guaranteed. You can't get me to say I understand that. I wrote a column before the season about I understood why they were dragging their feet. It's easier to do it if somebody else does it too. It's easier for the Ravens. Joe Corry brought up Russell Wilson. If the Broncos had gone fully guaranteed on Russell Wilson after the Browns had gone fully guaranteed on Deshaun Watson, then it's easier for the Ravens to say, what, are you going to be mad at us? It's not our fault. I understood the Ravens saying, we're going to drag our feet on this one a little bit because we're talking about a sea change. We're talking about, a critical moment in the history of football, and we want to slow it down a little bit. So I was defensive of the idea of dragging your feet. You weren't prepared for the Browns to do what they did with Deshaun Watson. That kind of screwed up the whole conversation, and now where do we go from here? Okay, so slow it down. Let's see. But I will never defend the Ravens moving on from Lamar Jackson because of the words fully guaranteed. Never. I'll never say I understand that. And anyone who suggests that it's crazy for the Ravens to do that, and I mean this, I can respect you as a person, but I mean this sincerely, you're full of S. You're just saying stuff. It's not crazy to give a fully guaranteed contract to your quarterback because you are giving a fully guaranteed contract to your quarterback. You're just not saying it's fully guaranteed. You have to be trying to avoid facts in order to not recognize this. Every quarterback has gotten their money and then some. As Joe Corry pointed out, they don't finish the contract because they're given more money. It's semantics that we're fighting about. That the deal is, quote, fully guaranteed versus just us knowing it's gonna be fully guaranteed because you play the quarterback position. I will not waver from this. The Ravens screwing this up fumbling Lamar Jackson over the words fully guaranteed is inexcusable. It's indefensible. If it's something else, as I brought up before, if we learn a year down the road that Lamar Jackson went to them and said, guys, I'm just not signing here. I want to be somewhere else. Or my relationship with so-and-so is, if we find out in the future that it's not that, it's something else, we can talk. But we have no reason to believe that. If they've decided they'll never do it for whatever reason, they're not going to be a franchise that gives out a fully guaranteed contract, then as unacceptable as I find it, what's the next step? To your point, John, yes, I would be more inclined to draft a quarterback than I would be to F around with a bridge quarterback. I'm not doing that. I'm not playing that game. Let's see if we can get by with this guy. Those guys are good enough typically to be good enough. Sometimes. Not even all of them. They're good enough to win enough games to prevent you from being able to draft your next quarterback. If you're moving on from Lamar Jackson, you're trading him to a team that has a very high pick that you're using to try to find your rock star quarterback and praying you get it right. Well, hey, the last time they found it with a 32nd pick. You're right. And the Eagles found Jalen Hurts after that. It's not like you can't find a rock star quarterback with a lower pick. But I'm going to go ahead and improve my chances. I know Patrick Mahomes wasn't a top 10 pick, but he was a top 20 pick. How's Joe Burrow worked out? That looked like a pretty good way of using. I mean, like, I'm improving my odds. I'm not messing around with a bridge quarterback. And I know Jonas brought up yesterday, well, what if they just don't like this year's crop of quarterbacks and they just prefer next year's crop of quarterbacks and they try to line things up that way? Like, you can, I guess you can try to, again, you're playing the game where you're just holding on to Lamar Jackson for another year. What if he does go and win the Super Bowl? Then, like, now what? Just give him the freaking money, man. Like, just get over yourself on the fully guaranteed. Again, and I'll throw in the one other caveat. Unless medically you've reached a point where you are convinced that there is something more significant, that there is a legitimate injury problem that is going to be an issue for the rest of his career. That's the other caveat that I'll throw in on that we couldn't possibly know, right? Like, nobody's going to come out and say that because it would hurt his trade value, and Lamar Jackson is certainly not going to admit to it openly. Unless you know, again, either that Lamar Jackson won't sign or that there is a true medical reason why you can, not the, well, he hasn't played 17 games the last 2 seasons. Stop that. That's nonsense. But if there's something that's legitimately he's going to be dealing with for the rest of his career that you can see medically, well, then, yeah, obviously that would be a reason to not do it. Short of those 2 things, no excuse. My guy Jama, they have around $33 million next season after all bonuses were paid. Yes, this is the silly thing that people do where they're like, well, if you sign Lamar, then you'll never be able to have anybody else. Stop. Come on. Come on. We're not. Like, these things aren't hard. I know I joke about how I'm a dumb guy, and everybody's like, dude, you're not that dumb. Like, it's part of my shtick, right? Like, I'm not that dumb. I know that. But I also know I ain't a genius. And I can figure out how this math works. There's a Google. And I get it. Like, my wife couldn't figure out this morning where she could. We're really struggling with switching over to, like, a world with no cable. My wife has never been in this world before. Mrs. Clark, God bless her. She has things that she's wonderful at, but change is not something that goes well for her. And so the idea of trying to operate off a Fire Stick and figuring out where to find, well, what if I want to watch this movie? Well, you can just search for the movie. You don't have to go search every app and see if it's on that app. She was like, well, Netflix didn't have, I swear to God, it was the Drew Barrymore movie Ever After that she wanted to view. Don't ask me why. I don't. Maybe because we were down at Disney and there was a Cinderella thing going on. I don't know. But she was thinking about Ever After with Drew Barrymore. And she's like, it's not on Netflix. I'm like, okay, well, it's probably on something else. She's like, well, I looked on Netflix and I looked on Disney. And I'm like, you can search the homepage and it'll tell you where to find it. It'll take you to the app. And she was very struggling with that. My point being, if Mrs. Clark can figure out how to watch movies, you can figure out how to look up and see what a team's cap situation looks like. You can do that. You don't need me to be your Google. You can be Google. We all get our own. Just go to Google. We can do this. Hell, you probably don't even have to go to Google. If you just put it in your search bar, it'll take you to Google for you. And you can find out why the notion of the Ravens giving big money to Lamar Jackson does not mean that they would suddenly be screwed and no longer be able to sign any players. That's not true. And as Joel Corry pointed out, and as anybody with a brain could figure out, they would obviously be far better off signing Lamar Jackson now than they would be going into next season with him on a franchise tag that would suck up everything in a cap hit. I know Jonas brought it up yesterday. If you're trying to go out and get a wide receiver, not that there's a big money free agent wide receiver. That's the problem. Like, you typically have to trade for those guys, but still, like, even if you're considering doing that,
seems like Stephon Diggs wants out of Buffalo.
I don't believe that either. Like, by the way, that whole thing, and don't get me wrong, I would still be happy with Stephon Diggs. Don't get me wrong. This is like we overreact to. Stephon Diggs is pissed off about losing. If I'm in Buffalo, good. And I saw his tweets yesterday. Like, I thought he handled it perfectly. You want me to be okay with this? You just want me to be cool about the fact that we just put up 10 points in a playoff game at home? You want me to be like, gee shucks, good luck, guy. Good, I'm glad he's pissed off if I'm a Buffalo fan. But yes, if for some reason he's decided he wants out, let's talk. Let's have all the conversations. But no, there's no doing a deal would be the best thing the Ravens could do in order to set themselves up cap-wise for sorry, my brain's all over the place, for trying to acquire a wide receiver in some form or fashion. All right. Continue to get into more of your thoughts throughout the course of the program, but we had to do this a little bit earlier on. By the way, today's show is also brought to you by this print issue of Press Box, which is available right now. I'm pointing it at Charles, like Charles is the camera. Like, Charles, just describe it to people because I'm not holding it to the camera. It is the best of 2022 issue of Press Box with our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Adley Rutschman, on the cover. You can go get it for free right now at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box, or read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. Had to do this a little bit earlier because of his schedule this week, but it's great to catch up with former Boys Latin and Loyola star Cam Spencer here on GCR. Well, it's great to catch up now here on GCR with a young man that I got to see play a lot over the last couple of years at Loyola. He has moved up to the Big Ten, and he has continued to kill it this season, averaging 13.6 points per game. He frustrated Maryland fans a couple weeks ago. It is what it is. Of course, hit a huge shot to knock off Purdue a couple of weeks back. He is the pride of Boys Latin. Cam Spencer is with us now here on GCR. Cam, it's Glenn. It's great to catch up, man. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, Cam, it's awesome. I've really enjoyed watching you play now for a few years, but getting to see you do this, going to the Big Ten, and proving to everyone what you're capable of doing against the highest level of competition. How much has it meant to you? How important was it for you to show everyone, dude, I can be a hell of a player no matter who's on the other side of the floor?
Yeah, when I first made the transfer to Rutgers, they made it so easy for me in the transition, and part of the challenge was playing in the Big Ten, which I think is one of the best conferences in the country. So, I have high goals for myself as a basketball player, so I want to challenge myself against the best, and coming to Rutgers allowed me to do that.
When did you know that this was something that you wanted to do, Cam? Like, would you have preferred to have been at this level all along? Was it always a goal for you to try to get to the highest level of college basketball?
No, I enjoyed my time and was so appreciative of the opportunity that Loyola gave me to start off my college career. But after that COVID year, when we got the 5th year of extra eligibility, I kind of started to think about it. And, after our season ended last year, that's when I really thought about making the switch to transfer to somewhere like Rutgers. And, I'm very happy with my decision. And, Coach Peichel gave me the opportunity. And I'm just so appreciative of everything that he's done for me.
It's working out okay for you, obviously. The obvious parallel that folks will make, of course, is the situation with your brother, right, where he goes and he proves everybody and says, I can play in the Big Ten and I can make an impact. How much did you talk to him about that as you were going through your own decision-making process and knowing how important it was for him to prove to everybody I can play at the highest level of this sport?
Yeah, he was a big part of it. He obviously wanted me to challenge myself, and I got to see him have a great year at Northwestern and see what really the Big Ten was about. And I thought he had a great year there, and just he kind of gave me all the inside news, I guess, into what that level was like. And I compete against him in the summertime and stuff, and he really pushed me to kind of take on that challenge, and just very happy that I did.
You guys are intense dudes. Like, I'm wondering what it's like when you guys get together in the summer, because I know the intensity that you bring to a floor when you guys are going up against each other. Like, how long does it take before, I don't know, the first maybe punch is thrown during the course of like battling against each other?
Probably after the first possession or two. Honestly, we're pretty competitive, so. We hate losing, but we hate losing to each other even more. So, I've gotten so much better as a player, just having him as an older brother and competing against him and him pushing me. And, I'm just very thankful that I've had him in my life to get me better as a basketball player and as a great older brother.
That is the least surprising thing that I have ever heard. Cam Spencer is with us here on GCR. Cam, where does that come from for you? I've had a few conversations with your mom over the years. Obviously, I've had a ton of conversations with your brother, but that intensity, that passion that you have for playing basketball, where does it come from? When did you first start sort of taking on that I don't want to say persona because I know it's who you are, but that just really intense level that you bring to the court?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were kind of born with it, but, we have two competitive parents that pushed us to kind of start off in every sport growing up, and that was kind of the start of it was, playing every sport that we could and seeing which ones we like. But I think we've always just had a passion for winning, and we just hate losing so much that we want to do anything we can to prevent it. So we're really just a competitive family, and we love sports at our hearts.
When did you know basketball was for you?
Probably like sophomore year of high school or so, I would say.
Okay.
I just, I played lacrosse and loved lacrosse. Just kind of had the first love for basketball, and knew that I wanted to play in college and take that challenge on. So that was really the time that I made the choice to try to commit to basketball.
Are you the type that like keeps the chip on your shoulder? Like you're looking for somebody almost to say something about you? Like you're looking to maybe get a side eye in the gym before the game and is this really the kid that I'm going up against tonight? Like are you looking for something like that before you get ready to play?
I wouldn't necessarily say I'm looking for it, but I think I have always played with the chip on my shoulder just because I've kind of been a late bloomer, and there are always people that don't believe in you, and you want to prove them wrong. So I try to take the chip on my shoulder and take it to the court every day that I play.
We can tell. It works quite well, by the way. We can see that.
Thank you.
Cam, the experience being at Rutgers, I guess just tell me, why has it worked so seamlessly for you? We know part of it is you're a talented basketball player. Like, we understand that. But that doesn't mean that it's going to work so easily for everyone. Why has it been so seamless for you in making this transition?
I think just because of Rutgers and Coach Feichel, like it's just a match made in heaven. Like we're very similar in the blue-collared aspect, I guess. We're a lot of blue-collar guys at Rutgers, so coming into the program, I saw it right away. Just kind of the guys that Coach Feichel recruits are guys with the underdog mentality and competitive dudes that want to win, and I just felt like that couldn't fit me any better. So, I'm just very thankful for the opportunity that Coach Feichel gave to me to play here.
You obviously, I don't know if we go back to the Purdue game. I am sure that as a kid, you enacted a lot of like last second and game-winning scenes. And look, we've seen you hit game-winning shots already in your career, but maybe nothing quite like that. That moment, what it meant to you, and maybe how did it compare to the way that I'm sure you imagined something like that in a driveway or somewhere in your life growing up?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was just happy that we won the game. Every possession matters in a game like that, but Paul made a great pass to me, and I just had to be confident and knock it down. But I think it really set the stage for us as a team that we can go to a place like Purdue, which is a tough place to play.
Yeah,
as the number one team, and deservedly so. But I think it just gave us a lot of confidence going forward that we could get a win like that on the road and take that with us.
Yeah, it's seriously undefeated at the time. I mean, all of the above. Do you ever get nervous, like at all? Is there ever a moment for you? You seem so calm and cold-blooded. Like, is there anything in the world that like brings you even an ounce of nervousness whatsoever?
No, I mean, to be honest, I that's kind of why I try to work my hardest, just so that I can just have the trust to go out there and leave it on the line every night and be okay with the result.
I understand entirely. I completely get it. Just another minute or two here with Cam Spencer, of course, now at Rutgers after some great seasons at Loyola, and before that, Boys Latin here in Baltimore. Cam, what did, those years at Loyola, man, we think about, how loaded those teams were, and obviously we're seeing, what Santi's doing now in the NBA and sort of killing it. What did you most take from that experience and being at Loyola and playing here the last couple of seasons that maybe most helped you for not only making this jump, but obviously another jump that I have no doubt you're hoping to make here in the future and going pro?
Yeah, to be honest, when I first got there, we had some older guys that worked pretty hard, and I kind of got to learn under them what college basketball was all about. It's a different game completely from high school, so it was an adjustment at first, and you got to learn under those guys, and appreciative of the teammates that I had at Loyola, and the coaches helped me tremendously build as a player. So just very thankful to all those guys and all my experiences to get to where I am right now.
No, I mean, it's awesome to see how it's worked out for you, and I bring it up, like, I know your brother's still pushing for it. How much does that still drive you? Like the idea that I'm going to prove people wrong so much so that I'm going to put a jersey on, I'm going to play in the NBA at some point.
Yeah, it's a tremendous motivator. I mean, that's the end goal is, that's the highest level of basketball in the world. So to say that you've reached it there is a goal of mine, and I know it's a goal of Pat's, and he's very close. So I'm rooting like heck for him, and I believe in him. So I think he'll do it. But that's definitely a motivator for us.
I have no doubt that's the case. He is Cam Spencer, of course. It's a shame we didn't get the schedule to work out to get a game with you back here in College Park this season. I'm sure you had a few folks that traveled up to see you guys really put it to Maryland a couple weeks ago. And what a crazy atmosphere that is up there at the Rack. I know it's an awesome place to play. Cam, what can we plug for you? Social media, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere. Where can folks be giving you a follow?
I actually don't have any social media.
Oh, good
so
for you.
Sorry to,
oh man,
sorry to do it,
I am so insanely
no
jealous.
for me.
What was it? Were you always that way? Did you ever have social and just got rid of it, or was it just something you were never interested in?
Yeah, I've never had it. Never really been interested in it. I think if something's that important, then it'll find me. But just focus on basketball. So,
dude, I'm insanely jealous. I'm so insanely jealous of being able to stay away from the cesspool that is social media. Good for you, my friend.
Thank you.
Hey, Cam, it's awesome to watch you thrive. It's a lot of fun to watch you play this game, man. Appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck as the season moves forward and towards the NCAA tournament. Thank you for taking a few minutes for us this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Cam Spencer with us here on GCR. Hell of a competitor, man. I don't know if you guys have never watched him or never watched his brother play. Holy crap, those guys. Like, when he said, it took a couple of seconds before it would, like, a first punch would be thrown when they'd be going up against each other, I'm like, yeah, that's about right. Like, those dudes are nuts. Like, they are absolutely insane. But, damn, they are really talented. Especially, like, given we're talking about a 6 Cam's 6'3", maybe 6. They might list him at 6'4", but he's probably more like 6'3". Unassuming white guy shows up. You're like, okay, like this guy really? And then
list him at 6'4".
Yeah, that's what I said. They probably list him at 6'4", but let's be honest, he's really more like 6'3". And that dude is a terror, man. Like, he is a terror. I'm not surprised by the success that he's found at Rutgers. I'm surprised by how good they are. I'm not surprised by the success that he has found at Rutgers. Like, Pat obviously found a lot of success at Northwestern, but they weren't good. I'm stunned by how good. I know Rutgers has been competitive, but they've been really good this season, as Patrick referenced a little while ago. So good for Cam Spencer. Appreciate him taking the time for us this morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Today's show, as always, brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Keep trying to tell you, it's championship week. How about we win some money, right? What are we doing? Let's go win some damn money this weekend. And there are great offers available for you for championship weekend at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Sign up with BetMGM, bet $10, and automatically get $200 in additional free bets. Get this promo. What you want to come say? You can come say hello, John Colson. You got a new offer to add to the table. What else? What else is on the table? This is the most worshipful Grand Master, John Colson, is with us.
Just got a new offer as you were starting to do that. Got an email.
You got to try to like bring yourself a little bit lower to the microphone.
There you go.
Yeah.
There
listen to the
you
baritone in that man's voice.
So, new offer from let me get this right from DraftKings.
Okay.
Bet $5 on the Chiefs-Bengals game.
The AFC Championship game. Yes.
And if either quarterback passes for more than 1 yard,
ooh boy,
you win $150.
Now, is this for new
people?
So if you have not signed up with DraftKings before,
if you sign up, you bet $5. If either quarterback passes for more than 1 yard, you win $150.
In money or in free bets?
Money.
In money.
In money.
So they're giving you $150 in cash, essentially. 1 yard.
1 yard. More than 1 yard.
More than 1 yard. So if they throw for a 1 yard pass and get hurt on the first play, you're screwed.
But then you got the other quarterback.
That's true. You have to have both of them throw for exactly 1 yard and then both get hurt.
Yeah, or not throw at all. Just get hurt.
A lot going on here. By the way, look at that screen in the back. Who did that? Whose idea was this?
I did that.
Well, this will be great when we do our lacrosse show next week. We have coaches stop by to have that screen in the back. Now it goes to something else. We got to figure out how to leave. Oh, that looks good too. You know what? I take it back. Look at you.
I know.
Look at you thinking this thing out. Some nice press box images on the screen in the background.
Those are the only two I could find.
Well, there's still two good ones.
But I can show you how to set it up to add any images up there you want.
I'm good with these images.
You may want to put something special up there for a wrestling show.
All right, so that's DraftKings. Sign up right now. $5.
PressBoxOnline.com/offers.
Right. So let's make that abundantly clear. You have to go to that link. You don't ask me for a code. There is no code. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers.
The DraftKings link.
There's a DraftKings link there, and you sign up for the first time. $5. Make a $5 bet. Any bet. Or
$5 bet on the
them throwing
Chiefs-Bengals game.
The bet will be
they throw for more than 1 yard, then you have $150, and you can bet the next game.
Pretty big deal.
Or do whatever you want to do.
Pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I would go sign up for that right now if I were you.
Going to sign up for that?
Well, Charles is a college athlete, so we are not going to have Charles get involved with that whatsoever, my friend. And I don't know if Griffin's
I've been having issues with.
Yeah, tell your mom. There you go.
That's
There you go.
like.
That
That's
she
what I
can get
like.
involved with
Yeah,
that.
I've been having issues setting up my DraftKings, so I got to make sure I set that up this week because I guess I would get the new offer. 'Cause
If
I
you've
haven't-
never
That's
actually
good.
signed up
I haven't,
before,
yeah,
you're
so
in. Unfortunately, your pal Glenn has signed up for DraftKings, and so
You still bet them
not,
to get
not
1
eligible.
yard.
But
So you
Mrs.
don't want the DraftKings NIL deal then? Is that what?
John,
No.
he
Yeah,
can't
I
do
know,
it.
I know. It was a
Stop
joke.
it.
I ain't even
Joke.
on that scale of an athlete.
Stop it.
I'm just doing my D3
You're going to
thing
get
over
us
here.
in trouble. Stop it. Leave it alone. Mrs. Clark could sign up, though. She could sign up for DraftKings. We could go that route and get $150 free.
Please.
That would be all right.
Okay,
All right,
guys,
you good?
thank
Everything else good? John was in here during while we were replaying Cam Spencer. We were fighting about the fact that if you want
We
to
weren't
fully
fighting.
guarantee
It
a
was
contract.
just a point I didn't think you were making.
Well, I have
so,
brought it up before. I just
brought
it doesn't
up like weeks ago.
but it doesn't do anything for me as far as being an excuse for why you don't make the. John's point is that if you do a fully guaranteed deal with a player, you have to put that money into escrow, and that's an awful lot of money for an owner to put into escrow
On the sidelines.
and that's fine. Like I'm not going to disagree with that premise at all. It still doesn't justify not having Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. It still doesn't justify.
I agree with that. I
like-
just think it's a point that's worth.
It's
that's
all I
worth-
can throw
that's
it all
part
in
of the-
there.
That's part of the.
But it
mix.
doesn't make me say like, oh, gee, gosh, golly.
But maybe it's why they're negotiating harder. Who
Well,
knows?
yeah, sure. By all means, negotiate. Keep negotiating. My thought continues to be: there's nothing you can say that will justify, short of something medically that we don't, or he refuses to sign. The words "fully guaranteed" will never be the thing that makes me say we just can't do that.
I would also like to say, is it weird that Lamar Jackson has had hip injuries for the last 3 years that always seem to nag him in the middle of the season?
I mean, like that.
I'm just
I don't.
saying.
That's. I'm not. I think that's playing football.
That's me at the end of the bar.
Like I think that's playing football. You end up dealing with things like
Yeah,
that.
but it's the same thing over. I just.
But
wondered.
he didn't miss any time because of his hip.
Correct, but he was on the questionable list.
But
several
every
times.
quarter,
And he
Tom
did-
Brady has been on the
he-
questionable
and-
every week
and-
of his
and
career.
he did miss time last
year,
before
yes,
because
right,
of the hip.
correct.
So I just wonder if there's something nagging.
If there's something that they know, I'll keep coming. If they know something that he has a degenerative hip that they have not made public, that would be defensible. Like
yeah. And they also couldn't make that public.
Correct.
To be
I already
fair.
said
Yeah.
like that we wouldn't know about that.
Right.
That would be the reason. My point entirely is just, and you hear it from people. Well, the Ravens aren't foolish enough to give out fully guaranteed. Why do you think that's foolish?
Oh, I never said that.
Not you.
Yeah.
I hear that from other people.
Yeah, it's silly.
What do you think is
That's where the
foolish
league's going. That's where the
about the
league's
words
going.
fully guaranteed?
that's where the
When the
league's going.
quarterback's contract, that every quarterback gets their money.
And more.
Yes, you go back to them.
And the ones that suck get their money and end up on other teams.
It's always the way it
still
works.
sucking. Yeah.
Always the way it works. What are we doing here? Why do you think those words are foolish? That's my entire point.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, John.
Bye.
Appreciate it. It's John Colson coming in here. Greg Rosenthal joins us next. We will bring this up, but we're going to talk some Australian Open with my buddy from Courts of Thunder. Of course, NFL Network, NFL.com. He's next. Glenn Clark Radio.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Looking for some excitement in the new year? Laurel Park has plenty of live horse racing events to spice things up this January. The much-anticipated Winter Meet kicks off on January 1st, plus we've got special MLK Holiday Racing on Monday, January 16th, and the Winter Carnival Stakes on Saturday, January 21st. Winter may be cold, but the racing at Laurel Park is hot. Learn more about upcoming January events by visiting laurelpark.com.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North North Point Boulevard.
Another Orioles season is in the books, and the Bat-Around was there every step of the way as the Birds posted their first winning season in 6 years. And after promoting 2 #1 overall prospects in Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, Mike Elias has said it's liftoff from here. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and along with my co-host Zach Goodman, we'll be here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon all off season, discussing every signing, trade, and waiver claim as we navigate the cold winter months that lead to spring training. You can watch us at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And if you miss a show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. So tune into the Bat-Around with Paul Valley and Zach Goodman every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here at PressBox Sports.
It's the perfect time to sign the young basketball fan in your life up for a membership in the Retriever Kids Club. It includes free youth admission to all regular season UMBC home games, plus a t-shirt and a drawstring backpack. Membership is only $35. It makes a great gift. Visit UMBCRetrievers.com/Kids Club for more info. Membership is available for kids 12 and under in the Retriever Kids Club. Again, UMBCRetrievers.com/Kids Club.
If you can't listen or watch live, you can subscribe to the show via Spotify, Amazon, or Apple Podcasts. Leave a 5-star review while you're there. Or, if lying isn't your thing, we'll take a 3.5-star review too.
Back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Tuesday edition of the program. Today's show also brought to you by, you know what? Let me save that one. I tell you what, today's show is also brought to you by me, Glenn Clark, because it's Glenn Clark Radio. Now, I'll get to you the rest of these folks. I just don't want to double up and tell you the same things you just heard during the commercial break, and I didn't do my math well on that. You know what? Just a reminder, again, you can pick up this print issue of Press Box right now at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box, or read it all, PressBoxOnline.com/bestof. Adley Rutschman on the cover, our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year. It's a sad night for American tennis fans because 2 players that were really looking like legitimate threats both went out. There are still 2 American men alive. They play tonight. I want to talk some Australian Open. I guess, legally speaking, we'll have to include maybe a football topic or 2 as well. But he is, of course, my partner from Courts of Thunder, our friend from the NFL Network, around the NFL, NFL.com. He is our buddy Gregg Rosenthal, and he's back with us now here on GCR. What's going on, pal? How are you?
I love that you lead with the tennis. You don't even, put the idea out there that we're starting football. We know what the people want.
This is the demand is out there. I heard from a lot of people that were very upset that we weren't doing shows during the Australian Open. Look, man, Greg's got, I don't know if you heard, football pays the bills in Greg's life. And I took my family to Disney World last week, so it just wasn't practical. It just wasn't practical, but I don't know. Maybe I can squeeze an episode out of him at some point. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I was sad last night because Seb Korda in form feels really legitimate. Not that I think he was going to beat Novak Djokovic or something like that, but feels legitimate, like someone that if he's healthy and in form, he is a legitimate threat to at some point in the coming years compete to be an American man winning a Grand Slam. So what we saw from Seb Korda early in this tournament and what we saw in the tournament before that looked like Seb Korda in form. And then to see it kind of come unglued the way that it did last night just sort of reminded me that, I don't know how much we're going to be able to assume that Seb Korda is always going to be in form.
Right. We assume a lot with these young guys when they make a quarterfinal. Remember Tiafoe did, now, is that almost 5 years ago at the Australian Open? And and he's had his ups and downs since then. But Seb Korda feels a little different in just that you can see with the strokes that he has, like the game that he has. To me, he just looks like a top 10 player. But we've also seen, and you kind of saw it in that matchup, unless you're a freak, unless you're Carlos Alcaraz or you're Rafael Nadal, it usually takes some big-time losses in those moments and just physically being able to survive. I think, his opponent last night, Karen Hasenup, the one thing that dude is just like a truck. And it's like that tennis, unlike every other sport, is a totally different sport in their biggest Grand Slam moments. And that guy Kachanov just seems so strong that he's built for these 2-week 5-set tournaments.
Yeah, he does, and he's made a lot of good runs and won a lot of big matches, and that got that. I think it was sadder, however, the Jessie Pegula thing, because you and I talked about it. I legitimately believed she was going to win the tournament. I legitimately believed it was time for Jessie Pegula to break through. And look, Vika Azarenka, when she's in form, is about as good as anyone on tour, right? Like, when she's in form, she's a rock star, and she was very much in form last night. But, boy, what a bummer that was for someone that looked like they were ready for their moment.
I think she knew it, too. And that's sort of tennis, and I don't know if you watched that Netflix show, but it's just a reminder, like, it's just the most mental of sports. I think boxing is there, too, but it's just one-on-one. And I think Pegula knew she was the favorite. I mean, it was the first time she got to this part of the tournament, and it was like her and Sabalenka looked like the two best. She would have been the favorite in this match by a lot, and she's playing someone who is feeling a little freer, and, like, that's a different position. I couldn't help but compare and contrast her and her father's football team. Like, I thought she had a better chance to win this tournament, and the Bills had to win the Super Bowl, but they both, I think, dealt with a similar thing. Was like, it's hard when you're not like the up and coming person. It's harder when you're expected to win. That's what champions do.
I think it's a great point, right? Like, when everybody's coming for you now, like when there's it's a burden. It's a burden, and it's the first time she really felt that. There are 2 Americans left. They play tonight. Ben Shelton, Tommy Paul. I think the Ben Shelton thing, I'm not trying to dismiss what he could be as a player. I think right now this is a fluke. Like, I just don't think he's there at this point. But you and I have talked about Tommy Paul a lot over the last couple of years and how many times we've wanted to believe in him. I don't think he has a prayer of beating Djokovic or Rublev if he wins this match tonight, but I do think if he wins tonight, it's another step towards buying into him as legitimately a player that could be a threat at most slams the rest of the year.
Yeah, like the men's game is so deep, it's hard to know, but he's in form right now. He's 24, so it's not like he's over the hill or anything. He's still a young player. That's about when you hit your form. But I think you're dismissing our boy Shelton a little too quickly here, Glenn.
Did you watch that? Wait a second. Did you watch the other night? Like, those look like 2 guys that did not belong playing in the 4th round of a Grand Slam tournament.
Okay, but for your listeners, Ben Shelton is a 20-year-old who won the NCAA singles championship in May. Like, last May.
I get it.
He just joined the Pro Tour like 6 months ago, and here he is.
He's never
and
left the country before. This is the first time he's ever left the country. Not competed in another country. The first time he's ever left the United States was to play in this Australian Open.
Okay, here's where I'm going to push back and where I'm making a totally irrational call here. Here's what he has that none of these other young Americans have. Incredible height and, like, maybe the hardest serve on tour already, but he could actually move. So, like, that right there, a huge lefty serve like that, that's a weapon that's never going to go away. And then the thing that I'm probably too early to say, and we'll see, because it's his like, breakout tournament, is I don't know, man. There's something like, I think he's got like the fangs, for lack of a better word, that he might just, not wilt in those big moments that we've seen like almost every big time tennis player. Like, this dude won the NCAAs. He started out his freshman year. He wasn't even like the top 4 guy on his team. He won the NCAAs, and he just like, when you listen to him, I don't know, man. I think he might have that factor where he is mentally tough in big moments, which, as you know, in tennis is almost more important than everything else. If you got that and a serve, I don't know. He could beat Tommy Paul. And he could be around a long time. I think he will.
I think that there's 2 different conversations that we're having, right? Like, I think Ben Shelton will be a player. I think he will be a factor. I think he will be among top Americans for years to come.
He might have the highest. I mean, it's early, but he might have the highest ceiling of any of these guys just because of that serve. Like, fine. Even in that match, he didn't get broken one time.
He hasn't. Name me a match that he's won of relevance.
Well, the NCAA champion.
I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Like, he's never beaten anybody. Like, I just can't. I can't do anything with Ben Shelton until I see him beat someone. And I get it. Like, as we point out, Jensen Brooksby's beaten a lot of guys, and he's got nothing to show for it to this point. Like, I'm not suggesting that just doing that alone elevates you to that. But a world in which I'm buying into a player that's never beaten anyone. Like, never beaten anyone.
All I'm saying is, if you want to get excited about someone, like, seeing him, like, reminds me of when I saw Kyrgios for the first time, and some of these guys that are that big, and it's just like, tennis players are different now. And here is, I don't know how tall he is. What is he, 6'4"?
Yeah, he's 6'4".
I'm not sure, 6'5". Yeah. Like, he's a huge dude with a huge serve that moves so athletically that to me, like, that immediately puts him like a little more interesting than basically all these other young American guys.
I believe I'm not even kidding when I say I think that Zhang is the best win he's ever had in his career. Like I think that's the highest ranked player he's ever defeated. Like maybe.
Okay.
Like
we'll see. We'll see this match because I think it's a tricky spot for Paul too. He knows
agree
what
with
an opportunity is to make a semifinal.
I utterly agree with that point. Like to me, the story tonight is way more about Tommy Paul than it is. I think to your point, there's a totally a world where Ben Shelton could just win this match because he could. He absolutely could just win this match. But I think there's a lot of pressure on Tommy Paul because this is not a match he should be losing. He should be at a place in his career where when he has this opportunity to make a first career Grand Slam semifinal, he shouldn't be messing around with it. Like, he should be able to take advantage of that. I hope you're right about that.
If I'm Djokovic, though, I think Shelton would – not that anyone has much of a chance the way Djokovic looks in this tournament, but you never know. If I was Djokovic, to me, Shelton would be like the one guy I'd be afraid of just because – he just has nothing to lose. Maybe he's just too dumb to be afraid of the moment, and he's got a big serve that maybe you can just hold and win some tie breaks. Like, I'm ready to get stupid in my belief.
You are really all in on Ben Shelton, man. Like, you are going.
Usually you're that guy. No,
I know.
I just want to have some fun. I don't know.
I hope you're right.
But
I hope you're right.
Here's the thing. He was a guy. A lot of smart people have been saying, you got to watch this guy. You got to watch this guy. This is the guy. This is the guy. I saw some like future top 10 rankings, and they would put like Ben Shelton in it like 5 years from now. I'm like, who is this guy? And then to show up your first time out of the country and you make a quarterfinal, I mean, that's something special players do. That's all I'm saying.
I don't disagree. It would matter if he beat somebody in the if he had one win to this point that I thought was even half relevant. Like, I'm trying to even think. If he beat Roberto Batista Agut, I would have something. At least he's beaten no one to get to this point.
Okay.
It's one of the most absurd. We talk about this all the time. That you bring this up more than I do on Courts of Thunder, where this is tennis. Like, you're going to go back and find out that someone made a slam final or a semifinal, and you're going to look at their run to and you're going to say, what the hell was that? And this is Ben Shelton. Like, Ben Shelton, look at the names of who he's played to get to this point. There's nothing there. Like, nothing there. Not even
right. It's a weird sport because a guy like Yuri Lehechka, who lost last night to Tsitsipas, he made the quarterfinals, on paper has had like a better tournament until that point than literally anyone in the draw. He beat Cam Norrie, he beat Felix, he beat another top 30 player. I'm forgetting off the top of my head. It's a bizarre sport where you can be like, in theory, have the best results in the entire tournament, but still no one knows your name and it doesn't get you that far unless you can just like win 7 of them.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where I'm at. Gregg Rosenthal is with us. What else has stood out to you so far in this event? Like, to me, I know what you're talking about with Djokovic. If he's healthy, if what we saw last night is that he's completely healthy, he's probably unbeatable. If he's not completely healthy, I do think Rublev can give him a hell of a fight tonight. Like, I think that he could be in for a battle if he's not 100%. I know he looked 100% the last time we saw him, but if he's not, I do think this becomes very interesting tonight.
Yeah, I think Rublev's had a better sort of mindset than he normally does. Djokovic looked so healthy the other night. I'm just assuming he's going to win this tournament, but I do feel like Tsitsipas, like, he's due to have one tournament sometime. You know what I mean? And he seems like he's in a better place right now than I've ever seen him. And so if that's the final, I actually think Tsitsipas, would make it interesting. Could have a chance.
I hear you right. The center thing really did show something. Like, the Tsitsipas that we know is the guy that when he blows a 2-set lead, he's done. Like, he's just out of it. He can't come back from that. He's too emotional. He's a wreck. And the fact that he rallied back in order to win that 5th set did say something to me about him. I do still think he's plenty capable of, taking a 20-minute bathroom break and losing his mind the first time he gets into a bad spot if he faces Novak Djokovic in a final. So I
really hope he beats, Khachanov. And on the women's side, Rybakina, who won Wimbledon, and I felt bad for her because she's the most unknown Grand Slam champ ever. I think at this point she's the favorite, her and Sabalenka, and this is not a matchup that's probably going to get the American audience going. But man, they bat the ball, and they would be deserving. And it would be interesting to see Sabalenka going for her first Grand Slam title after being in the top 5 10 players in the world for the last 4 or 5 years.
I am not, dude. After what she did last night, I'm kind of leaning back towards Vika, man. Like that
would be awesome. I would love it. I've seen her at the 3rd Street Promenade here in Santa Monica. She lives a town over. She's got like a kid. She's kind of been out of the game. She was one of my original favorites.
Yeah.
So I would love to see that.
Dude, that looked like that. She looked like herself last night. Like she looked real in that one. All right. Well, there's that. I guess I'm supposed to legally ask you a football question or two. Not that I care at this point. Well, tell me what you make.
Oh.
I don't. Dude, this is so weird for me doing this every day.
Well, you're sick of talking Lamar.
I'm really over. Like, I just want to know what's going to happen and move on. Everybody knows how I feel.
I have offered a different perspective. I haven't been in this mix. I don't know what you guys are saying in Baltimore. What are you guys saying?
Oh, but people here are all over the place, Greg. I mean, by the way, this is why people think it's great sports radio fodder. I just don't like doing that sports radio. Like, it's not interesting to me. There is at this point definitely, I don't know, a vocal 30% or so of this fan base that is kind of moved on. They've checked on from Lamar Jackson, or checked out from Lamar Jackson. And it's absurd to me. Like I yesterday, some of my colleagues were talking about like, well, who would be the bridge quarterback that you'd be? I'm like, what is this? I know you. I know what a Geno Smith guy you are. I understand, and I'm not trying to be, because I think his story is amazing. I think it's incredible. But pretending like at any point this season we were talking like Geno Smith had an opportunity to win a Super Bowl he didn't. No one felt that way. It's a great story. It's awesome what he's doing. But nobody with a straight face believes you put Geno Smith on a good roster and you're going to go win a Super Bowl. Like, it's nonsense. This is the 49ers thing maybe is screwing things up for everybody because you're starting to wonder, like, is it somehow possible to build such an infallible roster and have such strong coaching that you can still become a threat with a mid-level quarterback? But
sure,
it's such a one.
We've seen it. The Ravens won a Super Bowl that way.
Well, no, they won a Super Bowl because their quarterback played like he was brilliant for a stretch of 4 weeks.
I get it. Well, the 49ers almost won a Super Bowl that way. That is
fair. That is fair, 100%. So is it possible?
It's very hard, though.
That's the point. Like, the idea of just moving on from your quarterback, deciding to become that team because you're afraid of whatever it is, because you're afraid of the words fully guaranteed, because you think you're going to get stink-eyed at the owners' meetings, whatever that is, I can't stomach that. It's nuts to me that you would operate in a world that nobody's ever done this before. Like, this is insane what we're talking about. There is no team that has ever had this caliber of quarterback and has just moved on because they got afraid about the amount of money they were going to have to pay him.
Right. Well, it'd be interesting because obviously they would get a lot if you could tag and trade him. But I also think all this talk is kind of silly because I just don't believe that there'll be any scenario where he's not on the Ravens this year. I mean, there's a scenario where there's like a holdout and it's a whole long, very annoying story to cover. But I don't personally believe there's a scenario because I think deep down, Lamar does want to be there. And I think deep down, they want, not even deep down, they just want Lamar to be there too. And I thought it was interesting and important the way Harbaugh handled that post-game or that postseason press conference after the way he had handled it during the season, which was a little weird. People thought he was hanging Lamar out to dry a little bit in some of those press conferences, and you can understand in the emotion of the season. But I just think it's really all about Deshaun Watson's contract, and this is finally the first thing the Browns have done to get back at the Baltimore Ravens for taking their team, is give the dumbest contract in NFL history, and now it's led directly to Lamar Jackson. I really think it's a one-to-one thing. Lamar is just like, he got that contract. I'm not taking anything less than that. Like, come back to me when you have that.
What I struggle with, Greg, is I don't understand why people are so afraid of the words fully guaranteed when they know damn well every quarterback has always gotten every penny of the money and then some. Like, I don't get.
Well, not Russell Wilson. I hear you, but
we'll find
I hear
out.
You with Lamar, and I think these young guys, I think they they should just get him. And I do think it's a league meeting thing, and Bisciotti not wanting to set a precedent and all this stuff, which to me is stupid. Just pay him.
That's the part. What you just said is the part that I can't stomach. I can't stomach the notion. Like if they internally knew there was some degenerative health issue with Lamar Jackson that we don't know about yet, like, fine. You know what I mean? I can get that. But the idea of this really coming down to we think this is a slippery slope and other teams are going to be pissed off at us, and Steve Bisciotti is not that guy. He's just not. He does not like being the guy that rocks the boat, and I don't want to be the guy that gives out a fully guaranteed contract. I cannot fathom fumbling a franchise quarterback, a generational talent, over not wanting to be the guy that gave out the words fully guaranteed when you know damn well you're going to pay the dude every penny that you give him in a contract anyway. Like, what is the win there?
You're right. Right, and I guess I just don't, see much reason to think he'll be gone because they still control his rights. They would be happy to. They would give him the second tag. Like, it might take a long time to play out. I don't know. I heard some numbers. It's hard to know how confirmed there are, but the numbers that were kind of going around league circles, there was definitely a lot of speculation and buzz that they were negotiating in that week when Roquan Smith got his contract, and the guaranteed money is it's like halfway there, but it's not. I just don't think he's going to sign for the Josh Allen type of contract, and you can say, okay, that's bad by Lamar. Why doesn't he just take Josh Allen's money? Or you can say, like, look, Josh Allen could have gotten a lot more guaranteed money if you look back at it. Maybe his agent didn't really help him much. I don't know.
I'm with you. And by the way, like, I was told at one point by someone who definitely would know that Lamar did not present this as a black and white thing. Like, this was not either fully guaranteed or nothing.
Okay.
That there could be a number in there that you could find, but it wasn't $133 million, right? Like, that there is a number that you could get to where you could save face and say, we didn't give fully guaranteed, and yet still get it done. That was something I was told last summer, but at the same time I was told that both sides were encouraged that something might get done before the season began, and obviously that didn't happen. So I don't know what to make of it, and I honestly have reached the point where I'm utterly sick of it. Like, I just want to know. I'm sick of doing the hypotheticals. I'm sick of everybody's opinions. I'm sick of it. This is why I'm probably not good for this business any longer, Greg. Like, I'm too old to walk in every day and be like, let's talk about this dumb tweet that I saw today and somebody's silly opinion.
Well, enjoy Tommy Paul versus Ben Shelton tonight. That's pure and it's sunny there. It's Australia. It's like summer, everything. It just seems nice there.
What's happening? What's the around the NFL plan for the next couple of weeks?
Well, we do head to the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. Till then, we're doing our regular 3 shows a week, and I'm excited. It's pretty rare to have 4 teams in the conference championship, which feel like they're not only the best 4 teams all year, but have about an equal chance to win the Super Bowl. There's some numbers to it that, like, literally this hasn't ever happened in terms of 2 games with a point spread this low in the same week in conference championship.
No doubt. At Gregg Rosenthal on Twitter is how you follow him. I'll do my best to push him to do a show at the end of the Australian Open, but I don't have high hopes. I don't have high hopes of making it happen. Greg gets very excited when we get to the American swing. When we get to Miami and Indian Wells, Greg starts bugging me about it.
Ooh, that is a good one.
He's always like, dude, let's do some shows now. And I will be happy to do it at that point. Love you, buddy. Appreciate you. Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks, man. See ya.
It's Gregg Rosenthal. Around the NFL, of course, NFL Network, NFL.com, and my partner on Courts of Thunder. And, yes, to those of you that are Courts of Thunder fans, and I appreciate you reaching out. It's just a tough – for multiple reasons. One, it's tough because we can't watch all the matches. They're happening at 3 a.m. Not ideal for trying to talk about a match that you only barely saw anything of. If that, you kind of feel like idiots. There's a lot of reasons why the Australian Open just doesn't work out. If you want to pay us,
why don't we do the show from Australia next year?
And then I have said a number of times, it's always been my dream that at some point I could just black out football and just go spend January in Australia. Like, I've talked to my wife about it whenever she talks about, like, crazy. So she one time had a cousin that was getting married in Paris. And, like, when I say cousin, I mean, like, cousin. Like, family friend, that type of deal. Someone I had never met before. But this is before we were married. We were dating, and she said, would you want to go? And I was broke. Like, I just said, no. Like, we can't. I don't care that much about Paris. I had been when I was a child. It's not like it was. I can tell everybody I'd been to Paris. I don't remember much. I was 10 or something like that when I had gone.
Then you found out it was the same week as the French Open.
No, it was Wimbledon. And so I when she first asked me, I was just like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to do that. And then she came back to me a week later. She was like, just want to put this out there. Wimbledon's going on at the same time. And if we go a couple days early, we could take a day and go across for Wimbledon and then come back. And I said, well, better find some money. Like, better dig in. And it was the greatest thing we ever did. It really was magical, everything about it. And we got to spend 20 seconds with Serena Williams, famously, because Bryant McKinney, Bryant McKinney found out that I was going and was like, dude, if you happen to be anywhere near, just like yell out this guy's name and see if he recognizes. And sure enough, she played on court 2 that day. Court 2, you have to walk back through like the public in order to get to the locker room. And so she's walking through the public, and I just said, what the hell? I shouted out the guy's name, and the guy stopped. And he looked at me, and I was like, I'm friends with Bryant McKinney. And he was like, come with me. I was like, oh, my God. Like, holy F. We got 20 seconds. That's all we got. Like, it was very quick, and but it was very cool. I mean, it was just a magical moment for us, and we had a wonderful time going to Wimbledon. So we've talked about this since then, and she'll talk about, like, because next year's our 10th anniversary. We do that. Yeah, 10th next year. And she said before, like, well, we should go somewhere crazy. And I was like, well, you know damn well. You know what is at the top of the list for your pal. The problem being, you just know if we plan it out that way, it'll be the year the Ravens make a Super Bowl run. Like, you just know that it'll work out that way. I screwed it up this year going to Disney World while they were firing the offensive coordinator and getting booted out of the playoffs. And I wasn't doing shows. So we'll see. I don't think we definitely, after the Disney World trip, we sure as hell cannot afford a trip to Australia next year.
That's what I mean. We take the show. You do Glenn
right,
Radio.
Right. We'd have to, if you can work on getting it sponsored, if you can work on that, pal. Like, and by the way, I've said this a million times. You want Greg and I to do Australian Open shows? Tell me where the money's coming from. We'll make it happen. I assure you. I just took my family to Disney World. I need all the money I can get. You tell me you got a sponsor. You think we could do a Substack? That people always say that. Like, people, there's enough fans of that show that, like, you could probably do a subscription. I'm like, I feel really icky about that. Like, we're not there. We're not tennis writers. Like, we don't have particular access. We're just dopes that like watching tennis. I don't feel good about the idea of charging people for that show. Like, that doesn't feel right. But if that's what it takes in order to do an Australian Open show, I guess tell me that you're interested. We'll make it happen. All right. Hey, Charles, you're not doing Fighting Words today, are you? Was the plan was to do it Thursday? I realized we probably should have.
Yeah, you told me Thursday.
But there was so much stuff. Like, there was so much meat that we didn't get to cover last week because I wasn't here. All right, we'll save it all. Save it all. We'll talk about John Jones. We'll talk about Francis.
Yes,
we'll talk about all that stuff on Thursday for Fighting Words. It was a big week in the world. It was a big meaty week in the world of fighting.
Big weekend for the big boys.
And there was there was also a fight, right? Like, on top of everything else, there was a big fight. We'll cover all that in Fighting Words on Thursday. Today's show also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. When we come back in, we'll get a tidbit and two-bit to wrap things up for a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
It's the perfect time to sign the young basketball fan in your life up for a membership in the Retriever Kids Club. It includes free youth admission to all regular season UMBC home games, plus a t-shirt and a drawstring backpack. Membership is only $35. It makes a great gift. Visit UMBCRetrievers.com/Kids Club for more info. Membership is available for kids 12 and under in the Retriever Kids Club. Again, UMBCRetrievers.com/Kids Club.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our annual Best Of issue. On the cover, we recognize Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman as our 2022 Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, and he sits down with us to discuss how his arrival in Baltimore was simultaneous with the Birds' turnaround. Also inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of the year throughout the local sports scene. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Looking for some excitement in the new year? Laurel Park has plenty of live horse racing events to spice things up this January. The much-anticipated Winter Meet kicks off on January 1st, plus we've got special MLK Holiday Racing on Monday, January 16th, and the Winter Carnival Stakes on Saturday, January 21st. Winter may be cold, but the racing at Laurel Park is hot. Learn more about upcoming January events by visiting laurelpark.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Tune in to Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday at 11:40 a.m. And if you really have nothing better to do, keep listening to this show too.
Winding down for a Tuesday edition of the program. So Griffin just informed me that Trey Mancini is going to join us on Thursday, which is great. Love Trey, and he wanted to get things sorted out this offseason. Of course, we now know he's signed a 2-year deal with the Cubs. Got married. He's got quite the off season. So we wanted to be respectful of everything that was going on before we had brought him back on. He's going to join us on Thursday. Well, on Thursday we're going to let Charles sit in the producer's seat. So Griffin, today Griffin's been showing him the finer points of handling the phones, and he was like, "Hey man, Trey Mancini's coming on Thursday. You got to be ready to take that call and be cool." And it reminded me that the first time Griffin ever was the producer of the show, famously, Cal Ripken was calling in. And I don't even remember why. Like, was there a reason why Cal was calling in?
I can't remember. I mean, it was Cal Ripken.
We would take Cal, but I don't, like, normally when Cal calls in, it's because there's something going on. There's an anniversary or something, or, he's launched something or something, like, whatever it was. But Cal was calling in. Look, it's the thrill of a lifetime for a kid that grew up in Baltimore that we've had such a great relationship with Cal over the years. And, whenever we've needed anything, he's always been there. I mean, I can't say enough. Cal, his team, John Maroon, the whole crew, they've been unbelievable with us over the years, and I don't take that for granted, right? Like, it's Cal freaking Ripken that we're talking about. You go back and tell 12-year-old Glenn Clark that he was going to have a loose friendship or a solid relationship with Cal Ripken as an adult, and I don't know what I would have done. I would have panicked. But So I said to Griffin, like, "Hey, dude, you're producing the show. Cal Ripken's calling in. You've got to be professional. Like, you've got to be ready. Like, you got to sound, hey, Cal, thanks for calling it. Like, you got to be." And I made him practice. In fact, we did it on the air. We had him do a practice addressing Cal Ripken. Like, ring, 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 ring. Glenn Clark Radio. Yeah, right? Like, hey, it's Cal Ripken calling in. And when in practice, Griffin sounded fine. Like, he was like, "Okay, Cal, thanks. We're going to get you on hold, and we'll be up with the guys in 1 second." And then it happened. I believe
in my head it still went fine.
I believe Drew was here that day, if I remember correctly.
Really?
I don't know. There was somebody else in the studio that day. I think it might have been Drew. Of course. Why not? And I noticed we were talking, and then I just sort of heard very sheepishly, Hi, Cal. I was like,
in my head, it still went pretty well.
I mean, it could have been worse. There definitely have been worse.
We definitely got him through.
We did get him through. That's the only part that really matters. So it was a nice reminder to me of that particular incident, which was very funny. Winding down for a Tuesday edition of the program, which has also been brought to you by UMBC Basketball. Retrievers women are home for 2 games this week. Wednesday against NJIT, Saturday afternoon against Vermont. Get your tickets right now by going to umbcretrievers.com. And then the men are back home the following Wednesday, so not tomorrow night. But, boy, my God, that's February already. Damn it. February 1st against Binghamton. The UMBC men are back at the Peak. Get your tickets. Experience game day at the Peak right now. Get your tickets at umbcretrievers.com. Anything we didn't get to today? Oh, apparently another couple of votes have gone in for Todd Helton this morning. And it was brought up by John Morosi that he now sits at 80%, and his drop-off last year was 5%. So if he dropped off 5% from where he is at the moment, he would still hit the 75% threshold. The Ryan Thibodeau and the tracker team suggests that still looking at the percentages, they still don't think that Todd Helton will get in. They're still, it seems, they're not saying that declaratively. They're just saying that right now they still think it's an uphill battle for Todd Helton to get in. But there is some encouragement that Scott Rowland might get in when the Hall of Fame announcement happens this evening. We will find out. Was there anything else we needed to cover today that we had? I feel like
Jeff Kent should be in. He won't.
You're very, very hot and bothered. By the way, Griffin did that. Griffin, he maybe things I didn't notice because I was gone. Did like a dumb bit on Twitter where he was like, "If you disagree, then block me" or something. Like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Jeff Kent's a Hall of Famer.
Calm down.
One of the greatest.
Get a hold of your
ever.
life. I definitely did a bit the first year when Roberto Alomar didn't get into the Hall of Fame. Now Roberto Alomar, we've learned out, is kind of a scumbag, so I don't feel this way about him anymore. But Roberto Alomar was my favorite baseball player. Like those 2 years when he was in Baltimore, it was unbridled joy watching that dude play baseball. I effing loved Roberto Alomar. And the notion of Roberto Alomar not being a first ballot Hall of Famer was bat-ass insane. And it was the spitting incident that like a few voters said, I won't vote for him the first time because I want to penalize him for the time that he spit on. It was John Hirschbeck, I believe, was the umpire. And I get it. Like, it was disgusting. It was gross. But debating whether or not Roberto Alomar, this is insane. This is like the idiots that continue to not vote for Barry Bonds. Like, my God, if you can't understand that Barry Bonds is a Hall of Fame baseball player, get the entire F out. But I was young. I was your age. And I was very emotional about things at the time. And I was like, I was so angry about Roberto Alomar not getting into the Hall of Fame that first year. I was like, I don't even think I want to watch baseball now. And I remember Drew playing the role of me that I'm now playing with you, and Drew looking at me like, dude, chill out. It's so weird to think of Drew as the voice of reason.
Not watching this ceremony that night.
I mean, why would anyone do that? No offense. I mean, my friends that work for the MLB Network, God bless you, I get it. You're doing content, the whole thing. I can't imagine watching the entire thing. Well, Jesus Christ.
No,
Twitter
not even tuning in.
Twitter can let me know who made the Hall of Fame. I can get a text that lets me know who made the Hall of Fame. By the way, the years where there, like Mike Messina was on the ballot or somebody relevant, I did kind of want to know immediately. But years, I don't really care if Todd Helton gets in or not. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I'd vote for him. I said that before, but I don't care. Like, if he doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, it's not the end of the world. He'll almost certainly get in next year at this point. But yeah, I'm not. There's no chance that I sit down and watch the television show. Like, come on, man. What are we doing? Like, do you really have that little going on in your life?
I was very upset last year when I watched it, and then it was David Ortiz.
Why would you watch it?
I wasn't doing anything.
There's got to be something better to do with your time.
It was like winter break. And,
are you aware that there's an entire world of content available on these apps?
It was like winter break.
I haven't watched that 90s show yet. I got to get in on that. I haven't even finished Last Chance U yet.
I usually take like a winter class. I wasn't taking a winter class last year.
There's still an entire internet, dog. Like, the whole internet exists.
Yeah, the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Mixtapes.
It was on the internet.
Jesus Christ. All right, let's get to it. Tidbit is brought to you today just a reminder that gambling can be fun, but you should set a limit and stay within it. And remember that if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.com.
List of most consecutive conference championship game appearances. So most consecutive conference championship game appearances.
For a team?
For a head coach and quarterback duo. So Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid now in their 5th consecutive championship appearance. They tie the Hall of Famer Ken Stabler and John Madden, who did it 5 times in a row from 73 to 77. And then there was, of course, one duo up in New England that did it 8 times in a row.
A ton.
Yeah. So
how many times in a row?
8 times for Belichick.
But how many times was it for Madden and them?
5 as well.
5?
And then Mahomes and Reid also 5.
Okay.
And then also Travis Kelce. I wanted to say Andy Kelce. He continues to climb.
Of course,
rankings,
we do still have the
positioning.
possibility of the Kelce Super Bowl.
Yeah,
like that still could be in play in Philly and Kansas City. Yeah.
But he's positioned himself into now the top 5 of 10 different stats in the playoffs. After his big game, and the one that I'm bringing up is now his 3rd game of 10 catches and 2 or more receiving touchdowns.
You know what's funny? I accepted Rob Gronkowski as the greatest freak in the history of, and there's times when I watch Travis Kelce where I'm like, he might be better. Yeah. I think he moves a little bit better than Gronk did. Gronk was a capable runner, but an awkward runner. You see that with Mark Andrews sometimes, where you're like, everybody says, you don't have any wide receivers, put him out wide. And then you see him out wide, and you're like, oh, right, that's why you don't go out wide. I think Kelce might be a better runner.
When you really think about it, has Kelce ever caught a contested ball? He's always open. He always catches the ball open.
That's a really interesting point.
There's always 3 yards of space in between them.
He's unbelievable, man. He's unbelievable, dude. It's so freakish. I don't know yet that I'm ready to say that he's a there's always the debate about who had the better career versus who is the better. To me, Calvin Johnson is the greatest wide receiver of all time because of his pure freakishness, right? We can debate Randy Moss and we can have a really
Jerry
good
Rice
Jerry Rice is the greatest career of any wide receiver in football history, but pure freakish, put him anywhere, irregardless of quarterback, of circumstances. Calvin Johnson was I talk about Zach Edey as being an alien. He was an alien. His skill set was just unlike anything I've ever seen before. And Randy Moss was unbelievable, right? To me, it's between the two of them for who's the greatest of all time, and I legitimately believe it might be Calvin Johnson. I've treated it that way with Rob Gronkowski because he quit and he came back and he was hurt. His numbers are going to be surpassed by a lot of guys, but his pure, raw, freakish, what is this? What are we looking at that position? I think Travis Kelce might be better. Might legitimately. Yeah. It's an interesting point that you bring up about him always being open. He is a more natural runner. He's still not he's not clean. He's not he's not a track star or something like that. But he is a more natural runner to me than Rob Gronkowski ever was. And dude, it is wild. A mountain of a man that also looks comfortable running. Whew. Yeah, go ahead.
It seems like he always gets hella yards after catch.
Yeah, dude.
He always gets the yards that.
And again, Gronk got a lot of those just because he was a load, right? Yeah. And Kelce gets a lot of them because he's a load too. They're very difficult to bring down. But in the open field, the specific open field, watching the dude run, it feels like he's got more to give as just a runner than Gronk ever did.
Every catch seems like a guarantee of he's going to be open. There's not going to be a defender near him.
And what are you
going to
do?
Make the first defender miss.
What are you going to do?
And not many tight ends can do that.
Yeah. Multiple guys are bringing.
Look, Kittle looks great still. Dude, Kittle was such a beast on Sunday, man. There is really a conversation to be had about whether or not Travis Kelce might be the most talented tight end of all time.
Maybe even receiver.
No.
But when you hear about it on this list. But anyway, 3rd game with 10 catches and 2 or more receiving touchdowns. No other player has done it more than once in the playoffs. And Kelce's already done it 3 times. So I wanted to know if you could name or at least how many of the 13 times it's been done by anyone not named Kelce since 1994. 10 catches, 2 touchdowns in a playoff game. They've been done 13 times by someone not named Kelce.
10 catches.
2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns. In a playoff game.
Yes.
And it's 10 different players, you said?
It is 13 different players.
13 different players. I thought you said it was 13 times. 13 different players. Okay.
So 16 times Kelce.
All right. Jerry Rice.
Yes, Jerry Rice.
My first guess would
in the 1995 Super Bowl.
Fitzgerald.
Larry Fitzgerald is not on the list.
It feels like I'm just guessing the same guys I guessed yesterday, if I'm being honest with you. Art Monk.
Not Art Monk.
How about Michael Irvin?
Yes, Michael Irvin as well, also in 1995.
Randy Moss.
Randy Moss is not on this list.
Opportunity was...
Holt or Bruce?
No. Neither of them.
Marvin Harrison or Reggie Wayne?
Reggie Wayne in 2005.
Rob Gronkowski.
Yes, Rob Gronkowski in 2012.
Pretty good. Yeah. Terrell Owens.
Not Terrell Owens.
That was my next pick.
Deion Branch.
Not Deion Branch.
That's what I'm saying. We're just going with names. Andre Reed.
Not Andre Reed.
Steve Smith.
Yes, Steve Smith did it in 2006.
Tim Brown.
Not Tim Brown.
Antonio Brown.
Not Antonio Brown.
Hines Ward.
Not Hines Ward.
Is there a Steeler on the list?
There is not a Steeler on the list. Just surprising. There is one more tight end.
Chill.
Okay, sorry.
Oh,
Shannon Sharp.
Not
Gonzalez.
Shannon. Not Gonzalez. This is a very very surprising when he was on the Eagles in 2009.
Selleck?
Yes, Brent Selleck did this in 2009.
Sure. I mean, sure. All right, it's 12:24.
The guy we were just talking about being the freak.
Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson.
Calvin Johnson.
I didn't remember Calvin Johnson being in the playoffs.
Well, I guess it was the one time. It was the wild card game in 2012.
Right.
The one time he was in there.
Jesus, I mean that's the problem with that one. Is you got to remember him being in the playoffs in order for that to have happened.
6 more. 5 of them are more modern, like 2013 and on.
2013 and on.
So
okay.
still.
Julio.
Yes, Julio did it in 2013.
Odell Beckham.
Not Odell Beckham.
Devontae Adams.
Not Devontae Adams. This guy was a longtime Colts and
T.Y. Hilton.
T.Y. Hilton in 2014. And then this guy was a Seattle Seahawk. In 2016 he did it.
Nate Burleson.
Not
Doug Baldwin.
Not Doug Baldwin.
Oh.
Golden Tate.
Not Golden Tate.
Lockett? But that,
yeah,
he seems
not
too
Lockett.
young. Yeah.
Percy Harvin.
Not Percy Harvin.
Sidney Rice.
The other random Seahawk, not Sidney Rice.
Jermaine Kearse.
Jermaine Kearse did it in 2016.
Yeah, we could have been here for a while.
There's another Seahawk, more that is currently on the team.
Another Seahawk.
Yeah, that's currently on the team.
DK Metcalf.
DK Metcalf did it. He did it this year.
Yeah.
The other week.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah. And then another guy that is currently on the Rams.
Currently on the Rams. Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp. And then that is, I think we got
There's
one more.
Yeah.
Did it in 2001. He was on the Giants. So he did it in the NFC Championship before they played the Ravens.
Oh yeah, when they won 41-0 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So Ike Hilliard.
Ike Hilliard did this in 2001.
I've never even heard of him.
There were some random ass names on that list, bro. There were some real random names
I like Jermaine
on that
Kearse.
list. Yeah, Jermaine Kearse is super random. Super random on that list.
Brent Selleck. Another
They name all of the Seahawks wide receivers. Yeah. Name every single receiver that's ever played for the Seahawks. I'm about to go to Bobby Ingram on the list. God, that is rough. All right, Tubular is brought to you today by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. You heard it from John Colson. A new offer for this week only. If you're signing up for DraftKings for the first time, go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Click on the DraftKings link. New players bet just $5 and win $150 if either quarterback throws for more than 1 yard in the Chiefs-Bengals game. Again, you got to go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers in order to sign up. Here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise. As we mentioned, the Hall of Fame announcement, the pregame show starts at 4 o'clock, and you can't miss any of that. But the actual announcement is expected around 6 o'clock on MLB Network. Big Ten Network for Big Ten Hoops tonight. Penn State and Rutgers at 6:30. Northwestern, Nebraska at 8:30. ESPN has Ohio State, Illinois at 7. The rest of the college basketball, find at glennclarkradio.com. Australian Open tonight. Coverage starts at 7 on ESPN+. Moves to ESPN2 at 9. I think it's the two other women's quarterfinals are up first. And then I think around 10:30 is when they expect the Ben Shelton, Tommy Paul, the All-American men's quarterfinal to start around 10:30 tonight on ESPN2. NBC Sports Washington, Wizards Mavericks at 8:30. TNT Celtics Heat 7:30. Clippers Lakers at 10. NBC Sports Washington Plus Capitals Avalanche at 9 o'clock. ESPN Plus and Hulu Golden Knights and Devils at 7:30. The USA Network for WWE NXT tonight at 8. Some non-sports highlights.
How I Met Your Father Season 2 with Hilary Duff.
Right, Hilary Duff.
Yeah.
Yes.
911 Lone Star Season 4 premiere on Fox.
Okay.
It's the Rob Lowe one.
Sure.
Just saw a ton of commercials
If
for
you
because
say
of the
so.
playoffs.
If you say so.
Natasha Lyonne is on Jimmy Fallon for the new show Poker Face.
Oh,
the
right.
Ryan
I did
Johnson.
see that. That kind of looks like.
It's like an anthology.
Well, it's like from the same guy that did Knives Out,
yes,
right?
Yeah, that's Ryan Johnson. So it looks really good. It looks really good. I'm excited for that. Comes out later this
I like
week.
her.
Yes. And then Jason Segel and Chuck D are going to be on Stephen Colbert.
I saw a great tweet from you. Have no idea who Peter Segal is, but like he's the host of Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR. It's a game show, but it's very funny, and he's a longtime broadcaster. And apparently, this has happened before, where he gets texts from like Hollywood agents that think they're texting Jason Segel. Because his name is spelled like S-A-G-A. Like, it's very similar. They'll be like, hey, buddy, got an idea for you. Can we talk today? And he'll be like, really quickly, do you think you're talking to Peter Segal or Jason Segel? It's pretty funny. But you have to know who he is, so it's whatever. Anything else?
Nope, those are the highlights.
Very good. Charles, you're on Twitter or anything? What are you on? You're on Instagram?
Instagram, Charles AP28.
That's right, AP28 for Adrian Peterson. Very good. And he's running the board on Thursday. We'll see how it goes. Are we going to do some TikTok? Have we gotten that straightened out? We need to have you talk to.
I just need to get the.
All right, we got to have you connect
password.
with Carson. All right,
Yeah.
got to have you connect with Carson. So I'll work on that. Very good.
I think I have it. So.
Well, then maybe we'll work on that. Very good. Thanks today to Gregg Rosenthal. Thanks to Joel Corry. Thanks to Patrick Stevens, Cam Spencer. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God. It's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow on the program, our buddy Brian McFarland from Russell Street Report. We do this every year. We kind of look over the big picture of the Ravens going into the offseason. Obviously, it's completely dominated by Lamar Jackson, but he is the salary cap guru over there. Is very smart. Always have great conversations with Brian. Look forward to doing that tomorrow. Drew coming by tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. Drew.
Better or for worse, we'll do that, and stuff and things, as always, on the program tomorrow. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including the Baltimore County Police Department, Problem Gambling, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Maryland Jockey Club, Grade 8's Memorabilia, Maryland Vascular Specialists, UMBC Athletics, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go, nobody. Duke sucks. Ohio State sucks too.